I'm at work one day where I'm doing a weekly business report, and all of a sudden, the 2 officers show up at work, put me in the van, and pluck the 90 out of my wallet, and they're like, go back in there and get us some more money or you're going to jail right now. I'm walking out at 5:45, and as I'm like probably almost a block away, a white van comes up on me, and it's these 2 motherfuckers in a state van in uniform at 5:45 in the morning when they should not even be on shift yet. And they're like, get in the van. And I'm like, dude, the guy, Officer Brown, was sitting behind me. If he tries anything funny, wrap that seatbelt around his neck and strangle his. Born in West Palm, pretty like working class. Like all my buddies' dads were trades guys, and my mom was a nurse. The first few years of my life was like fairly normal-ish. You know, like my dad's you probably hear more about this like throughout the podcast, but like my dad's a nut. And so biker, like big, like gangster biker dude, from up north with wild friends. Like my buddy Kevin and I were just talking about like all these things growing up that like for me, like it was just normal, or at least I thought it was normal. You know, I didn't realize that other kids didn't grow up with guns all over their house. You know, other kids didn't, their biker family and stuff didn't like pretty much lock all the kids in a room to watch like videos while their parents were doing blow and whatever else, like partying. Most normal kids didn't open a fridge and there's not a .380 pistol in the fridge that's just like the fridge gun, the couch gun, the like, I'm not even joking. I wish I was joking, but I'm not.
Right.
Like, that's just how I grew up. And I was taught from such an early age that like you don't with the firearms. Like every gun in this house is locked and loaded. That's not a toy. Like you don't with it. But there's guns all over my house. Like literally in the couch, in the fridge, in the cupboard, in a cereal box, like all over my house.
Is this paranoia, or is this just because of like drug activity, or there's so many
all the above, buddy. All the above. Part paranoia, part just doing dirt and stuff. My father, I know there was like some scam with these motorcycles. They were like bought a motorcycle from a place. So this happened when I was 5 or so. It was right before my parents got divorced. They bought these motorcycles from like an independent dealership, and somehow they figured out that they were like kind of f***ing them on interest somehow, because it was like a buy here, pay here. And so they're like, wait, they don't loan shark us, we loan shark you type of thing.
Right.
So they stepped to the guy and were like, listen, like we're not letting this fly. And then the guy was a wannabe gangster too, and he's like, oh, f*** you. And they're like, okay. And so somehow basically devised this scheme where like there was like 3 or 4 of the guys, my dad and my Uncle Steve, I called the guy my Uncle Steve, and a couple other guys, like basically they all stole each other's motorcycles, you know.
Right.
And somehow like pinned it on the dealership, like that he came and took their shit, and it became this whole big thing. So my dad took my Uncle Steve's motorcycle, my Uncle Steve took my dad's motorcycle, and then their other buddy Disco Joey took
Disco Joey.
I swear to God, Disco Joey. They had the greatest nicknames. They really did. Like there was my dad, they called Bear. There was Disco Joey, 2 Fingers Charlie. Like I swear, just like the funniest nicknames ever. It was really an art form, kind of like Disco Joey, who comes up with that. But at any rate, like they ended up stealing each other's motorcycles, and somehow it got pinned on this guy, or Aragoni, I think his name was, if I remember correctly. Somehow or another, a contract got put on my dad's head. So like when I was like 5 years old, we were living at this house in Coral Gardens in Stewart, and I'm like, I had a Doberman I had just gotten for my 5th birthday. His name was Spike, and he's just going nuts late night one night. It was like 10, 11 o'clock at night. Dog was just going nuts, and I'd come out of my room into like the living room to kind of see what Spike was going nuts about, and my dad was there, and you know, like I said, there's guns everywhere. It's late, so my dad's already paranoid. He knows there's a hit out on him, so he's like, go back in your room. And of course, being a little kid, I didn't go back in my fucking room. And he's walking outside like with his hand on his hip because he's got a gun on him, and so he opens the door, and I was standing not 20 feet away. As soon as he opens the door, a guy puts like a little I think it was a .25 revolver in his face and pulls the trigger, and it just goes click. Which for First of all, for a revolver to not fire is
Right.
like nuts that it didn't fire, but it just goes click. And my dad, like, startled, like, before the guy could even pull the trigger again, my dad was startled, but in that split second, before he could even get his gun all the way out, he just kind of swept the guy's hand down. And the guy got off, bucked off another shot, and that hit my dad in the ankle. And when that hit my dad in the ankle, my dad had already had his gun out by then. The dude already turned tail and ran. And my dad bucked off a couple shots at him, and I know he at least winged him, like, in the shoulder or something. The dude hauled ass. This happened right fucking in front of me. And so, just cops and and then my dad, like, even though he was shot in the ankle, he was a tough mother. He, like, came back in the house, locked up the house, and then, like, now he's, like, assembling his arsenal. And, like, I'll just never forget the cops coming, like, shortly thereafter, and them just being like, what the f? Because we had this big wooden kitchen table, and he just had, like, all sorts of shit laid out. Nowadays, it's a lot of guys in Florida, especially, like, they've got AK-47s and ARs and stuff, but, like, in the early 90s, it wasn't as popular.
Right.
So he's got, like, the AK and AR, stuff that you have to have special licenses to have, and the cops are like, what the f-? Like, what? And then they're like, you want, like, medical attention? And he's like, it's through, and then it's like bleeding, but he's got setting up all his guns and stuff. It's just one of those things that, like, pivotal moment. Him and my Uncle Steve sent myself, my mother, and my sister up to Connecticut to get out of Dodge for a while. And that was kind of like my baptism into the kind of, like, shit that my dad got into. And I was too young to understand a lot of it, but that was kind of like, I understood that.
Right.
I'd been watching, even though I was only 5, I'd been watching enough, like, Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal movies to, like, know that some shit was going down. So that was, like, the beginning, so without getting too bogged down in the details, like, I grew up like that. My parents got divorced, like, not all that long after. My mother remarried, like, in fairly short order. Another good story, though, is as they were getting divorced, my dad was getting all his shit out of the house. So my mom was a career nurse. She, at that point, had already been a nurse for, like, 25 years. He was getting all his shit out of the house pretty much, and he had very little left. My mom was, like, making my sister and I dinner, and I just remember she was just, like on vinyl, listening to music. Like, my mom was drinking tequila while she was making us dinner, and she was pissed. And her and my dad were like high school sweethearts. They were together forever. So her life's falling apart. And got these 2 young kids, and not a happy camper, put it that way. So my dad was coming that night to get a few things of his. So he shows up there, and my dad just, like, my mom is special. So he brought a domestic standby cop with him just in case. If that tells you anything about my mom. So
the biker's concerned.
Yes, yeah. So my mom's just like this little 4'11" Irish woman, but she's fucking nuts. He just wanted to, like, nip things in the bud, whatever. So he shows up, knocks on the door, and he's like, hey, Charlene, I'm here to get my whatever. And she gives him, like, a box of shit or whatever. And he's like, hey, Charlie, like, I need the fridge gun, like, literally the fridge gun. He's like, I need the fridge gun too. And she's like, oh, motherfucker. She's like, wait outside. Like I said, she'd been drinking. My sister and I were in there eating, but, like, I realized my dad was there. So when she went and grabbed the fridge gun, it was like this little 380 used to keep in the fridge. She went and, like, grabbed the 380 out of the fridge and, like, starts walking over to the door. And I follow her because I want to see my dad. I'm like 6, and my dad's still my hero, even if he's up. Like, I don't know at that time. So I'm, like, kind of following behind my mom. And, like, as soon as we get out into my driveway, my dad's, like, in the middle of the driveway, and my mom's like, you want your fridge gun, motherfucker? Here you go, and throws it at him. And my dad, like, does whoa, and, like, catches it right here, like, pointed up at him. Well, there was an empty lot next to our house, and the cop, for whatever bright idea reason, instead of parking right in front of our house so she knew he was there, he parked down by the empty lot and walked up through the empty lot. She never saw him. So when she threw that gun at him, my dad catches it. Like I said, everything was always locked and loaded. He comes up behind my mom and just berry hugs her. So my mom thinks it's just, like, one of my dad's buddies or some shit.
Right.
So my dad had taught her, like, a little bit of self-defense stuff. And she, like, stomps on his instep, elbows him, turns around, knees him in the nuts, and punches him. And I'll never forget her, like, when she punched him, as soon as she punched him, she went, oh, She realized it was a cop.
Right.
And he dropped. Mind you, little 4'11" woman, she dropped him. And she's like, oh, so like they knew that the officer was down. And like tons of cops now. Like this is really only like 9 months after my dad got shot there, mind you. All these cops, my mom gets a battery on a Leo. Well, immediately loses her license.
I was going to say she's a nurse.
Yeah. Immediately loses her nursing license. Like that really turned her like our lives upside down because she made good money. You know, she was a OR room nurse too, like really good at her job. So she went from like having this good career, you know, known at all the hospitals locally and stuff, and all the doctors wanted her for their surgeons rather for their operations, to like she went to cleaning houses.
Wow.
You know.
Yeah.
So like overnight. And so like she didn't even get a chance to work for like another month or two while she's fighting the case. Like she's done. As soon as the arrest happened, she was done. So and she was in jail for a few days or whatever, got her out, and she ended up getting, she'd never been in trouble a day in her life either. I think she ended up getting like 10 years probation, 10 years felony probation for it. The funny parallel about this story is that cop who got beat up by this 4'11" woman, fast forward to when we were in middle school, guess who's my school resource officer? The cop my mom beat the shit out of.
I'm sure it had nothing to do with that.
Yeah, and
sure.
oh yeah, no, they busted his ass to school resource. Like, yeah, you're going to deal with kids.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You got beat up by a 4'11"
yeah.
woman. Like, she kneed him in the nuts so hard, one of his nuts went into his stomach.
Oh, Jesus.
Like, that's how hard she kneed him. Like, as soon as he figured out, like, my mom was picking me up one day, and he figured out that she was my mom, nonstop harassment after that for me.
Oh, okay. I thought
you know what I mean? And I was already up by the time I was in middle school, you know. I had already been smoking weed and stuff. So, like, I got arrested the first time in 7th grade for possession of, like, not even a bowl pack of reefer. It's like the dumbest thing ever, but I got arrested for that. I was on drug court, but when drug court first started, and I just remember my dad being like, this is such a money grab. Like, this is ridiculous. And so, like, after the incident happened, my mom, I stayed living with my mom and my stepfather, Alan. And then, like, as time went on, years went on, I kind of go back and forth between my mom and my dad. And my mom, as you can imagine, going from being a career nurse to cleaning houses, like, we were fucking poor, you know, like poor. And so, and then, you know, I go back and forth between living with my mom and my dad. And middle school, when I did finally get arrested, that first time I was living with my dad, just so happens at the time, started like doing pills for the first time, like that young, you know. And my dad was always like, that was also one of his things. He was always like selling pills, like always. So, and he had like a lot of legitimate reasons to get pills. So my dad was always like selling pills and shit. I just grew up around it, and I had one of those ones, like, I'm like, man, I got a raging migraine. Pop's like, here, take this, and it's like a 10-325 Percocet. You know what I mean?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You slept for 2 days.
Yeah. No, I got high as fuck and was like, this is the best thing ever.
Oh.
You know?
No, I thought Percocets were like oxys, no?
They are, it's the same drug. It's oxycodone.
Did it
but
make you sleepy?
No, I just got high as a kite. You know, and
I thought oxys made you. Don't do oxys.
They can, depends on you.
And, I don't know enough about it.
It depends. Like I would just say, like, I'm my father's son, so like I was like somehow born with his tolerance. Some people would take their first, 10 milligram Percocet and just get wrecked, or like go to sleep. I just like fought it and stayed awake, and I just got wrecked and was like, this is the best thing ever. I feel like I have like a warm loaf of bread baking in my chest right here, like that fucking euphoria of like taking opiates. Whenever somebody asks me what it's like, that's what I tell them. I'm like, just imagine you have like a loaf of homemade bread baking in your chest, and like everything feels great, the world is great, everything is great. I'm like, that's the way it feels. Or imagine like John Travolta in Pulp Fiction, like driving in the convertible, like you know the scene, the famous scene. Like either one of those, like that's what when doing opiates is good. When you're not up and strung out, like that's what it feels like. So anyway, around that time I like done pills for the first time, and because of my age, like that was around the time that like OxyContin and stuff was first coming out and whatnot too. Now he had given me a Percocet like at some point in time for like a headache, and I knew I liked him immediately. I was already smoking weed too, but like I knew I liked that shit immediately. And he was also selling Oxy at the time. That was Oxy 80s, Oxy 160s, when those were still a thing before they got banned and all that stuff. And so started dabbling with like doing oxy and whatnot. Got arrested for the pot. Started going through probation for the pot. And then while I was on probation for the pot, I ended up getting in a fight with my sister's boyfriend and some of his friends, and getting arrested for that, like a battery or some shit. So then that violated my drug court, and I don't remember what they did to me for that. I think they just like extended my drug court or something. And then fast forward a little bit farther, like now I'm only in like 8th grade too, which is like after this. Right. That was 7th grade. I'm in 8th grade now, and my dad would get wrecked, and like on the weekends I would like just steal some of his pills, and then I'd go over to my buddies' houses and we'd fucking get high. So at one point, it was like a weekend, I was at my dad's house. At that point I was back living with my mom, and I like stole a bunch of pills from my dad, like methadones, oxys, roxys, somas, Valiums, whatever, just a freaking smorgasbord of pills. And I brought them over to my buddy Kevin's house, right. And brought him over to his house, and we're all just getting wrecked on the weekend or whatever. And then like I think I came home that night from his house, and I was up, like I like kind of bounced into the entertainment center at my house. And when that happened, then the very next morning I was like waking up to go to school, but I was not going to go to school. I was going to skip school. I don't remember where I had the pills stashed, but I must have fallen asleep with them either in my pocket or like stashed like on my groin or something. And when I woke up in the morning, vaguely remember my mom finding them somehow and being like all crying, like, what are these? And I'm just like, and I don't, like, but I don't really remember because I was half asleep. I end up like going to school, but I skipped school. I ended up hanging out with my buddy Kevin and his older brother and this girl, little Vanessa, and a couple other people. And we skip school and we just take pills. We f***ed up all day and just like laid around all f***ed up. I come home from school later in the day. My sister's there for some reason. My sister's like 4.5 years older than me. Come in, act like everything's normal. I like get a cookie and like something to drink, and my sister just like out of nowhere is like, I love you, and like starts crying. And then I just knew immediately. I'm like, what the f*** did you guys do? I'm like, what'd you do? Like it also, the memory of my mom finding my shit kind of dawned on me. I'm like, what did you guys do? And my mom like gave me this bullshit story that like, well, I didn't know what those pills were, so I took them to the pharmacy to get identified, and then like they called the cops, and and she was like, so like I'm sorry, like it didn't blah blah blah. And I'm like, bullshit. I'm just like, what the f-? So I'm like, so what did you do? And she's like, well, I told them they're yours. And like, I'm like, oh God. I'm like, you idiot. I'm like, I didn't talk to my mom like that, even though she's a psycho. Like, it's always like nice to my mom, but like when she did that, I'm like, first of all, I don't buy that story at all. Right. Like, you're been a nurse for 25 years. You lost your license a while back. Like,
you know how to figure out.
You know what the fuck those were.
Yeah, you don't have to go to the pharmacy.
You didn't have to go to the pharmacy. Number one. Number two, I don't buy that. But like, she's such a. The word narcissist gets thrown around so much these days. Right. I hate using that word because every chick out there nowadays is like, my ex was a narcissist and da-da-da. Like, and you're like, no, that doesn't mean what you think that means.
He was just an asshole.
He was just an asshole. He's a garden variety asshole. But my mom is the textbook female narcissist, like in every sense of the word, and a manic depressive, like, so super high mania and then super low lows. So, but like also loves to be the center of attention, the savior or whatever. So like when she said, oh, I had to get them identified or whatever, like that's all bullshit. She just wanted to be like, I'm saving my son's life. Like, look at me, and how like it's not that serious, bitch. So anyway, like no sooner did this little conversation happen, there's cops. They come to arrest me. So I get a felony drug charge over this shit.
How old are you?
I was 13 at this time. So now, so far I'm 13. I've got a possession of under 20 that I was on drug court for. I got a battery on my sister's boyfriend, drug court still for, and then now I've got a possession of a controlled substance without a prescription, 3rd-degree felony. So I do 21 days in the juvenile detention center.
How was that?
Sucked. Juvenile, it's gladiator school, man.
Right. I was going to say, you're a big guy, though.
Yeah, I was already pretty big by that time, but I I hadn't like hit my growth spurt yet because I was still pretty young.
Yeah.
You know, so I was like,
well, you're also a kid, and 17-year-old kid is different than a 13-year-old kid.
Oh yeah, so like I'm young too to be in there. So like, and I was big but not tall yet. Like I was like I was probably like 200 pounds, but probably only like 5.5 feet, maybe less. And so I went in there and it sucked. You know, I fought every day, especially being a white boy. I fought every goddamn day because it's a few counties up there. It was like you have Martin County, like the whole 19th Judicial Circuit goes to the same juvenile justice center. So you have like Martin County, St. Lucie County, Indian River County, and Okeechobee County all converge. So it's all very cliquey and all that. You know, and Martin County is small, so like there was like me and a couple black dudes that I knew them from school. It's like me and a kid named Sebastian Hill and Robert Norwood. We all knew each other from school, so like if it was like us versus them, we could fight together against them.
Right.
And sometimes it would be like a head up thing. That didn't do nothing but make me worse, you know, because I already had a bad fucking temper. I could already fight. So, you know, in some ways, I kind of liked the fighting and stuff. But I did 21 days there. I got out, and I knew I was going to get sent to a program. Oh, you ever had anybody on that talked about like the juvenile justice programs in the state of Florida back in the day?
I mean, John Boziak, I wrote a book about him and him going in and out of the programs. Yeah. Also, I was going to say, you ever heard of the case Cash for Kids? Yeah, I was the judge.
Up north with the crooked judge?
Yeah, I was in prison with him.
Really?
Yeah.
The judge?
Yeah. There were two judges.
There was two, right?
There were two. He got like 25 years.
Deserved it.
Yeah,
he deserved it.
And he was super arrogant too. Every time I
sure.
talked to him, it was funny. Is one time I went to him to ask him because some of the things Boziak had said seemed like there's no way it works like that. And Boziak had said, yeah, he'd been sentenced to like this. It's in Florida, sentenced to this program, and he explained the program, and then he and another kid plotted how to get out of the facility and escape, and they escaped. Then he got picked up again, and they put him in another one. He escaped from there, and then they caught him again, and they just stuck him in basically a homeless center for teens. And I said, that doesn't make sense. And he goes,
Right.
What do you mean? I said, you don't get to escape prison twice, and then they say, you know what, you don't even have to go anymore. Just sleep here during the day.
Right.
And I said, that doesn't make sense. He goes, that's what they did. So I went and I asked the judge, and I approached him. We were walking the track, and I went to him and said, hey, I have a question for you. And I said, you were a juvenile, judge. He's like, he got real stiff. Yes, why? And I was like, no. I said, I understand you were here on a case thing. I said, but I'm writing a book, and I explained it to him. And I never forget when I said the second time he told me they just told him, look, here's a homeless facility you can stay at for kids.
Right.
And that was it. I said, and they just and I explained, you don't just escape twice and they give up on you. And he goes, well, how many resources do you want the state of Florida to put into this kid? He goes, he's a bad kid. Or you try and keep a roof over his head, wait till he's 18, you can start sticking him in federal prison, or you can start sticking him in state prisons. He goes, but until then, he goes, you just can't keep throwing money at this kid. And I thought, he sounded so brutal. And we're talking about like a 14-year-old kid. Yep. Like you give up on a 14-year-old kid?
Yep. It's nuts, man. I just...
So whatever you're going to say, trust me, I've talked to the judge.
What I started to get at was like the DJJ programs that almost all of my boys went to, all the homies I grew up with, we all went to them. Right. Every single one of us, we all went. Some for longer than others, but we all went to at least one. I went to two, technically three, sort of. So after I got that felony charge, I did my 21 days. I got out. I want to say before I went to my actual program, I was able to like get a rehab, and I went to this rehab center called Data in Fort Pierce. 2001, matter of fact, 9/11 happened while I was there. That's like one of the things that sticks out in my memory. So I'm there, 9/11 happens, and the place sucked. It just sucked. That place sucked. It was co-ed, so there were some hotties that were like across the hall. That was cool,
Right.
and they were always showing us their tits and stuff. So that was cool. But other than that, place sucked. Especially again, I'm like 13 or whatever in that place.
Yeah.
So you know, and everybody else is like 17, like last resort before you're adult type of thing. So I forget what I did some scheme to get out of there, half-assed, like cut my wrist. So I didn't cut them. I like barely scraped them.
Right.
And
but they have to take it super serious.
yeah, like they had to like Baker Act me, and like they sent me to like a Columbia Health Pavilion down in West Palm, and I had to like sit there for like 3 days, get out, and then I was like, well, if you send me back there, I'm gonna kill myself. And lo and behold, it worked.
Right.
Because part of what they kept trying to do was like reinstate my drug court, because my parents were having to like help me pay for my drug court, and it was expensive, dude. Because it was like every time I'd get in more trouble, it was like, well, you need to have a one-on-one counseling session once a week, and then you got to do a drug test for $75, and you gotta do this, you gotta do that, you gotta do this. So when I was like, oh, you send me back there, I'm gonna kill myself or whatever, they're like, fine, we're just gonna turn all your probation to like regular probation, no more drug court, no more like record wipe clean. I'm like, well, my record pretty much gets wiped clean when I'm 18 anyway. But I violated for some reason, I don't remember why. And then once I violated for that, they sent me back for 21 more days in the juvenile detention center. And when I got out from the violation, they're like, listen, you're waiting on a bed at a level 6 juvenile justice commitment program. It's going to be 6 to 9 months or 6 months to a year. Don't know where you're going to go in the state of Florida. You're going somewhere, though. I'm like, okay. And I waited like, I was technically on like home detention. So I didn't have an ankle monitor, but I was like pretty much like community control probation.
Right.
So I waited like a month and some change, and I get sent to this place in Orlando called ATC. There was 2 in Orlando, one called ATC, one called ARC. So ATC was Adolescent Therapeutic Center, which was like they like coined it like a dual diagnosis, blah blah, government funded bullshit. You know, say they've got like counselors, you got to do like groups every day and blah blah blah. And but in reality, like, yeah, you had like counselors and you had groups and stuff, but like in reality, you also had like a lot of big ass grown men working in that motherfucker who fucked us up. Right. Like if we got out of line, if we got into fights or whatever, I mean, big dudes. I saw kids get their arms broken, teeth through their lips and stuff. Like half the guys that worked there for some reason were like these, I don't know why, but like big like black dudes that played like European League basketball or semi-pro football or whatever. There's one guy, Mr. EJ, was like 6'10". I watched him like sky high a number of 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old kids like just like it just fuck us up, breaking their arms and stuff. And they get away with it because we're all wards of the state at the time. And the one time I saw them do anything was there was this Jewish kid. I don't remember his name. I just remember he was Jewish because he wore the yarmulke. They fucked that kid up, and they fucked up when they fucked that kid up. Right. He got an emergency release. Like 5 days later, he was gone. He was out. I'm pretty sure his dad was a lawyer and shit. Like, you know, he had gotten in enough trouble to get into a program, but like they put his teeth through his lip and broke his wrist, and 5 days later he was out, emergency release, bye-bye. And he told them, like, as soon as they did that, he like laughed at him, and he's like, you fucked up. He's like, I'll be out of here in a couple days, watch. And his dad like got an injunction and this and that and the other, and then pulled him right out of there. I don't know how exactly he pulled that off, but he did. Right next to SeaWorld in Orlando, which was like the great irony. Like you'd go take out the trash, and SeaWorld's right there, and all the like you'd be in the chow hall, and all the happy families would go to SeaWorld, and you're like a ward of the state over here, like crazy. So I was there, and so like you have like this how fucking stupid that place was. Like you have like levels you have to go through to like graduate and stuff, and it's like orientation, commitment, change, maintenance, transition. So orientation's like your first two weeks. Commitment is your commitment to change. Right. Change is actually doing the change. Well, maintenance is maintaining the change, and then transition is getting out. But the thing is like all of these programs in the state of Florida, they're not time dependent. It's behavior dependent. Yeah. There was dudes in that fucking program for 20 months. All right. That's a juvenile, dude. Like, that's not okay. You don't lock up a young teenager for doing whatever, and most likely he's
not committing to the program.
Yeah, of course not. He's not. He's just getting his program restarted over all the time.
Right.
That was how they would get you. Like, oh, you got into a fight, start it over. It's a 6-month process minimum if you're perfect the whole time. So like his name was Antonio Allen. I'll never forget his name, and he just like would start the program over and over and over again. Finally, like at the time I was there, he was approaching being there 20 months, and they're just like, get the fuck out of here, kid. And he got out. So I was there like a little while, and so if you get in trouble, you'd get put on this thing called contract, which is like a behavior contract. Stupid bullshit. I got put on contract for like mumbling something under my breath about this one asshole like guard person. I'd been there about 3 months. I was like just getting to the change phase. This dude that I was like, I thought I was friends with at least, ended up like punching me in my shit. And I thought he was joking. Man, just touch me. Like, I'll fuck you up. And I thought he was joking because he would joke like that. I literally like touched him like that. And then he like freaking 2-pieces me, bing, bing. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, he actually like punched me. And there was like all these guards around. It was kind of a check-in move. There's all these guards around. So like, I'm like, all right, motherfucker. But he had like bony ass hands, and he actually broke my orbital because he hit me like right on the edge of my eye. And so I didn't hit him back because it was a check-in move. I'm like, all right, motherfucker. And the next day happens, and my eye is like, and like they're asking me like, oh, who did that to you? I'm like, oh, I fell. I didn't realize that hallway did have cameras, and they knew it was this other kid, Cornelius Anderson. And they're like, damn, Nene did that to you? And I'm like, I'm not saying, you know. So they like put him in trouble at first, and then I went to, used to have to go to a staffing meeting once a month. I didn't get any trouble because I didn't hit him back. And when I was in the freaking staffing meeting, like the one like program manager, this guy, Mr. Washington, was a real piece of shit. Thought he was a tough guy. Like, he came in there and was like, hold on, because I was going to be going to that change phase, like I said. Right. He was like, hold on. He needs to be put on behavior contract and started over. And they're like, why? He like literally didn't hit the kid back. And they're like, cuz. And he like rolls the video footage, and it shows like the part where I like touched his hand. Right. He's like, see right there. And I'm like, I thought he was fucking kidding around. Like, we were friends. And he's like, yeah, but you put your hands on him. And I'm like, give me a break. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me right now? Like, are you like, really? And like, even some of the other people are like, that's a stretch. Became this thing that like I'm like getting favorited. So they literally put me on contract and started my program over. So I'm like, so you're starting me over? I'm like, okay. And I immediately walked out of there and went and f***ed that kid up. That was my first mission. I'm like, you're gonna start my program over? Like, I'm gonna go attack that motherfucker immediately. Right. And I did. And I blindsided him because when he hit me, I was not expecting it at all. Right. He was like sitting there writing a letter to somebody, and I just ran up on him and beat the shit out of him. And then I got f***ed up we both got f***ed up by the guards. They literally slammed me so hard in the bathroom. They somehow slammed my big ass in between the toilet and the wall. I don't know how the fuck I ended up there, but I was in between the toilet and the wall like a pretzel. And they fucked me up, but I was like, hey, at least if my program's restarting, it's for a reason. So then I restarted and then did my program, got out like 6 months later or whatever. So I ended up doing 9-10 months as a 14, 15-year-old. I was already 15 by the time I got out. All it did was honestly make me worse. All it did was like make me better at fighting. There was a ex-boxer that worked there who actually became a mentor to me. I still talk to him occasionally. His name's Pinklin Thomas. He fought Tyson in his prime. One of the best jabs ever. And also one of the most epic Tyson knockouts ever. Like, sorry, Pink. But he takes, like, if you ever look up the Pinklin Thomas knockout, right, he takes like 9 full power shots from Tyson, just bing, bing, bing. The guy's just got a chin made of granite, Right. And like the fact that he took that many shots, you're just like, holy. He'd find guys that he liked, like either had the aptitude or the attitude or work ethic or whatever, and he'd train you. And I was one of those guys. So, and then also just like going to the detention center, like you're either gonna be a bitch or you're gonna learn how to fight. Right. Because like, especially when you're like, it's like gladiator school type shit, like you're gonna fight unless you check in, and then eventually you're like, hopefully at least if you fight enough, like if you weren't good at fighting before, you're gonna get better. especially because like guys aren't really stabbing each other like that because we're jitterbugs, we're kids.
Yeah.
Anyway, so then like Pink trained me and stuff and like made me just be a little smarter about how I did shit and whatnot. And I got out and I was like, man, I don't want to go back. I don't want to like do any more bullshit. And I stayed out of trouble for a couple years. Once I got off probation and stuff, like I started like smoking weed again when I got off probation and all that. Like I said, I graduated high school like a year later. You know, my mom was very much like you were saying, like your dad or stepdad or whatever. Like my mom was like, you're 16, you're graduated from high school, you're working full time, like you're paying rent, and and like obviously as a 16-year-old young South Florida kid, like mainly my whole life was like work, chase pussy, and smoke weed and shit like that. That's it, you know, period. And so and then surf and stuff when I could, you know, but mainly work and chase pussy. My mom is like nuts, like I said, and but also very like Catholic in some ways. And like my mom, it's such a weird like dichotomy because my mom is like on one hand like I don't care if you smoke weed or whatever, if you're like off probation, like or do some blow or like whatever. Like even when I was like fairly young, God forbid if you have a girl over at this house.
Right.
A girl
is paying rent.
Yeah, I was paying rent. I was paying rent. Exactly, and that was my. Therein lies the rub, right? I'm like, bitch, I'm paying you $500 a month to live at home. Right. And like, hello. It just was always funny. Like a girl is not like I could have like a girl over, but like the door better not be locked and like you know what I mean, typical shit. Like and like she is not staying the night at this house.
Right.
Period. And I'm like, this is bullshit. I'm like paying your rent, like this. So I moved out like young and pretty much never looked back after that. But it's just always been funny to me. Like that's the hill you're gonna die on, lady. Like I can do drugs, I can do this, I can do that, but like having a girl over, so like oftentimes like if I needed to like have a girl like stay the night or whatever, I'd go to Kevin's house actually, because I just have her stay over at Kevin's house with me and then, until I moved out on my own. Moving forward a little bit, like I graduated high school and stuff, and somewhere like before I turned 18 I got arrested again for some pot, dumb bullshit. And because
you find a lot of these arrests and punishments bullshit, but you keep bringing them on yourself.
I know. I take responsibility for them. They're still we're talking under 20 grams of fucking pot. Dude.
I hear you.
Like, and you're gonna send me to another fucking juvenile program for it? That's what happened. Mind you, I was like weeks before my 18th birthday. I get caught with under 20 of pot. And instead of like putting me on juvenile probation or whatever, they send me to another level 6 program, bro, for fucking 6 to 9 months.
Right.
I'm graduated from high school, working full time, living on my own, and you're gonna send me to a program with a bunch of kids? What the fuck?
Right.
What am I gonna possibly do at that program? You know? So they send me there. I had to like bring all my shit back to my mom's house because I'm gonna lose my place. And I had to go back to this place for like 6 months. I completed that program because, again, I was older than everybody. Like, I was already 18. By the time the program had a bed open, I was over 18. A lot of people don't know that, like, for juvenile shit in the state of Florida, they will...
Yeah, what can it go up to?
19, depending on... For me, like, somebody that's like a level 6 and not classified as a show cap. Well, show cap is a serious habitual offender. You can be 19 for something. That's when their jurisdiction ends. If you're show cap, it'd be 21.
Yeah, how upsetting it is that you know all these things.
Right?
And you've got the acronyms down.
I know.
Like he's got it inside now. You could be a counselor.
Yeah, I thought about it. They just don't make enough money. I'm happy that a lot of those programs have gotten shut down because, dude, that's a whole nother podcast in of itself. Is the juvenile justice.
What about the one that where they were killing people? They were killing the kids.
Which one?
Was it White House or something? What would they call it? They called it. When I mentioned it in a program, I got like 6 or 7 people telling me, "Oh, you're talking about the such and such where they found all the bodies buried, like 100."
Oh! I know. Yeah, the one in Miami or whatever.
Yeah, it's definitely.
I can't remember
South
the name
Florida
of it.
Sure.
Yeah, it's South Florida.
Yeah, and I had all these people saying, "Oh, you're talking about the such and such house, or you're talking about they called it the White House. They called it the
Miami Boys Home, I think it was, or something like that." Well, then also you're talking anybody that watches this that did programs back in the day, like Eckert Youth Development Center, EYDC. That was a level 8. Polk Academy, I think it was. OJOCC, Okeechobee Juvenile Justice, something rather. Here's something even more fucked up. If you were show cap, right? If you got sent to a level 8 program, you didn't get to go home from DJJ, like how I would get like those 21 days and go home and then wait for the program.
Right.
You didn't get to go home. There's no bond in the state of Florida for juveniles or whatever. So you get sentenced to a level 8, right? I remember like getting arrested in like, let's just using as an example, I don't know the exact months, like in January, I get arrested, I go in, do 21 days. There's a dude in there that's waiting on a level 8 program. Well, I stay out for a few months, fuck around, I violate my program or violate my probation 9 months later. So now we're talking September. I go back in for another 21. This motherfucker's still sitting there waiting to go to a level 8 program, which is going to be 9 to 12, 15 months.
If he passes it.
If they don't restart him a bunch of times.
He's already done that in the county jail.
And he's already been sitting in the juvenile justice thing for 9 months with no credit for time served, no nothing, waiting for that program to come get him. And I watched that happen multiple times. Like even the guards were like, this is fucked up. Like we get sometimes guys waiting for a program for 12 months, 16 months. Then they go to a program for 12, 16 months if they do everything perfect and get out. Like right. I watched it happen to some of my buddies too.
Would have rather just gone to prison for the
better off, or county jail, or what, like just holding these kids in there indefinitely. So fucked up. Anyway, but like my own thing, I end up going to that like second program. I was, like I said, like 18 already, and I completed the program like faster than anybody ever. I think I was out in 5.5 months, like, because they didn't know what to do with me. They're like, okay, so like you'll have class. I'm like, bitch, I'm graduated from high school and have been for a few years. And they're like, well, damn, like what are we gonna do with you? And like ultimately the conclusion they came to was like, well, we're gonna have you just like walk around with the maintenance man and like fix shit, because we don't know what else to fucking do with you. Because they never had somebody like me. So like that's all I did for like the 5.5 months I was there. And then they're just like, get out of here. And I got out of that one. And then I got out of that one. And then like ironically I got out like right before the jurisdiction ended. Because I had some probation when I got out too. And as soon as I turned 19, the jurisdiction was done and I was done. So anyway, but like, again, like to send me away like that again for like a little bit of weed, like it was, we're talking like weed on my floorboard, right, type of thing too. I had this like Volvo station wagon, the Catholic school
waste
cruiser.
Of money too, just for the state, like
the
resources just that you spent.
Straight money grab, man. Straight money grab for them because they're getting paid per asses and beds. You know what I mean? It's just like if you look at the list of programs now, it has shrunk so much. But back then there were so many, and most of them shut down, and like the corruption was just like rampant. Like that's a whole other podcast, to be honest with you. Fast forward to like 2021 or whatever, I end up I start doing pills again. Like I'd done them when I was younger, and then when I went to that first program I told you about, I didn't touch another pill again until I was in my 20s. So like from the time I was like 13, 14, like I didn't touch them again until I was in my 20s. And I start doing pills again, just dabbling here and there. I'm doing pills, and then I start going to the doctor to get them and all that shit. And I get tied into like, just all the pain clinics that were around in the earlier 2000s and earlier to mid 2000s, pre 2010 or whatever. All over South Florida. They were everywhere, on every freaking corner, building out doctors' offices for doctors, like doing all the construction shit for them. And they're
pill mills, right? The pill mills, yeah.
Yeah, they're like, instead of paying me in cash for like my work, they're like, I'll write you a prescription for 240 blues every single day that you work, for you and every person that works to any name you want. So I'm like getting a prescription for 240 written to my mom, my sister, whoever. Like I was running out of names, right? Because it was better than getting paid cash, right? Because I could turn around and flip them. So anyway, I'm like doing that, and I'm like I was working full time doing air conditioning. It was like kind of a constant in my life from 16 on. Like I started doing air conditioning then, did it ever since, and luckily so, because it actually like in weird way like provided me with like being able to live on my own and like have like that one good constant in my life. So along with the short, I ended up just getting like really involved in the pills and shit after a while. I was dabbling at first and then got real involved after a while.
So you're selling pills and you're working full time.
Yeah, working full time.
Right. Why sell pills and work full time? Or I mean,
the money, man.
Okay.
The money was insane, and I was just like selling wholesale too. The money was insane, and I like to get high too,
right.
you know. But at that time, it wasn't just like supporting my habit type of thing. It was like the money was nuts, and everybody was on them,
right?
You know, and like basically at the time, I was like, me and one of my best friends had a house. I was working full time doing air conditioning, selling pills. Kind of like a lot of my life, I was working full time selling pills and chasing pussy. Like that's.
When you said me and my buddy had a house, I immediately thought of Fight Club. The house that they had.
We had this house. It was like we literally called it the animal house. It was because like a lot of my other friends. I mean, we're talking. I had that house from like the age of like 19 on. And a lot of our other friends like just didn't work enough or didn't make enough to have their own place. So it was just like constantly parties, constantly house full of, you know, people dropping kegs and strippers and this and that. And like everybody showed up at our house after work. They worked nights. All our friends that worked in the restaurant industry would show up after work with food and booze and whatever. So just like constantly, like even when we were trying to have a quiet night, like next thing you know, somebody'd pull up and be like, can we drop a keg here? And I'm like, no, you can't. No, you're like, no, it's a Tuesday night. No, you're not dropping a keg here. And they're like, oh, come on, man. And then like another car pulls up and it's like 6 girls in the car. And I'm like, drop the keg.
Of course, I'm
drop the fucking keg.
I'm surprised I haven't gotten the keg out.
Yeah,
already.
exactly. And I'm like, as long as the ratios are good, like we're good. So and that happened constantly. Like I'm like, no, wait, they're coming? Okay, come on. And so that was just like a constant thing, and I just always had pills. Everybody's coming over and was selling pills, and all the girls got on pills too. It was kind of crazy, like how fast like all girls got on pills. They were all on Xanax back then. I stopped taking Xanax very, very young. I realized they were the devil. I think I was a teenager when I stopped taking them. I was like, never again. Like I don't like blacking out to the point of not knowing what happened, like and not being able to remember. So I stopped taking them very young. But everybody else would take them, and those things were so cheap, like. Prescription of 60 of them was like $16 back then, so they were like water. So I got like real involved with that and doctor shopping and stuff, and you know, my dad was doctor shopping with me and stuff, and
your dad was
oh yeah, I like my dad is a character. I mean, he just the amount of things like here's a guy that like again like the things you think are normal when you grow up with up family life, like my dad, he's also diabetic, and so one time like Kevin was staying the weekend or the night at my dad's house with us, and the pizza guy came, and my dad's like, check this shit out. My dad's a huge man. He's like 6'6", 275 pounds. It's a big. That's why his nickname was Bear. He like takes his shirt off. He's like this just big barrel chested hairy motherfucker, and he pulls out one of his packs of syringes, and he's just like boom, 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 boom. Just sticks like freaking 20 of them in his like chest and in his fucking in his belly, and then he like goes to the door and he's like, like opens the door, and the guy's like, what the fuck? And me and Kevin are like like dying, and my dad's like, help, and the guy's like like just drops the pizza and like and runs, and my dad just like he's like free pizza. And just like that's the kind of shit that he would do. Like that same weekend, he like at one point like had these friends, Phil and Ginger, that lived like diagonal across the street from us. They were like a younger, like she was a model, and then Phil was like a surfer dude, whatever. And they would like Phil would buy pills for my dad or whatever. And at one point that weekend, like we catch my dad like walking back from Phil's house wearing fucking diving flippers, like. On his feet and a mask and a snorkel, like walking down the fucking street from Phil's house, and we're like, Dad, what the fuck are you doing? And he's like, and we're like, what the haha, like Mark is so funny, ha 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 ha. Like even that was like kind of cringy for me, but Kevin was like dying, like, and I'm just like, dude, I'm like, what? Like, and again, like you're a kid, you think like Dad's just a nut, he's being silly. Like no, he was just a having a borderline psychotic break because he just does that many drugs and like just out there, man. Shit like that, like just over and over and over and over again. Like he'd always blame, because he was diabetic, he'd always blame like being all wrecked on I'm hypoglycemic, you know. And he'd be like trying to like keep awake while driving, so he'd slap his leg really loud. I can't even duplicate the sound he would make. He would slap his leg so hard it would be like, my sister could tell you, like, now to both of us it's like nails on a chalkboard, like hearing that noise, like and he'd like make up little songs to sing and shit, like, and everybody just like oh, your dad's so funny, like, yeah, he's so funny. Like, as you get older, you're like, yeah, this is not fucking normal people don't do this. Normal dads don't like wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and nod out standing up while cleaning the house, and also like making a gigantic pot of from scratch oatmeal and like wake you up with like a place setting and shit. And it's like, you're like, Dad, it's 3:15 in the fucking morning. And he's like, well, I made oatmeal. And I'm like, what the dude? What the and just like constantly. And then some of the shit he allowed me to do too. Just like, again, some of it I think maybe he thought I was going to do it out there in the wild anyway, whatever. Like, I did ecstasy at like 13 for the first time. Somebody came to his house to like buy, told me dad some ecstasy, and they're like, I was there, and he's just like, can I give your son a bean? And he's like, if he wants it. And I like took a bean and ended up like rolling with a stripper all night. I'm like 13, you know, and you're like, Dad's the fucking man. I got to like take X and like roll with a stripper, like, yeah, you know. But like, no, like looking like especially as a father now, I'm like, yeah, what the like, this is not normal, man. And it's just stuff like that, like over and over and over again. Like so many things, I can't even think of them all sometimes. Like how many things.
He's still around?
Yeah. Yeah. Surprisingly.
You'd say that like.
I know. Well, this is like the other thing about him is that like 4 heart attacks, 2 strokes.
It's not going down.
Shot several times, stabbed a couple times. He got hit by a mobile gas truck on a motorcycle and survived. He fell 30 feet inside of the nuclear reactor containment at the I swear to God, at the St. Lucie nuclear power plant. Broke both legs, both ankles, both heels. Spiderweb fractured his knees. It's like f***ed himself up bad. I mean, imagine Homer Simpson in the yellow bubble suit.
Yeah.
He's like sandblasting up their steps from one scaffold to the other, and the plank of the scaffold goes whoop, and he just falls straight down. Sues them. That was his other thing, was suing everybody. My dad sued Publix multiple times, Winn-Dixie multiple times, FPL, which that one was actually legitimate. You know.
Okay, now that one.
That one was legitimate. It was funny too, because he should have got way more money, and they kind of fucked him a little bit. Like the surveillance video in one of the most secure places on the planet is inside those reactors, and the security video vanished. He sued the fucking Girl Scouts. Like, again, no joke.
Why? Because he's diabetic and they sold him cookies and they said they were sugar free.
No. So he's at like, I was real young at the time. He's at like the Gulfstream Council of the Girl Scouts, like potluck dinner or something. And he's got like this utility sized tray of lasagna. And he's just, the way he tells the story now is like, he's like, well, I was walking and I'm carrying the freaking thing. It was like piping hot lasagna. And I see like, I look down at like the vinyl commercial flooring and I see like a puddle. He's like, and there was no wet floor sign or nothing. I
aimed for it.
And I just knew what I had to do.
What?
And he
like Kevin's like,
it's not like, it's the truth. Like, I've thought about like writing a memoir about it a few times because like there's so many. So he took a dive, man,
right,
and sold the shit out of it. And his knees and shit were so bad that he could just be like, and tear his ACL pretty much when he had legs. That is. Yeah, he lost both of his legs.
They've slowly been trimming him down, or
not slowly when he still had a foot.
Yeah,
and then at one point he's like, "Drop the fucking thing off, fix it." They did that, and then he lost the other one. You know, so like once they did this leg, they put the kibosh on the other leg, and then
the diabetics, like they just keep.
Oh
it's the toes, then it's half.
And
the
that's
foot,
that's kind of what happened. Yeah, that's kind of what happened with the 1 foot. He's like, stop taking little pieces of me and just get far enough up. But yeah, he like took a dive and like burned the fuck out of himself because he got all this piping hot lasagna on him. And the funny part was like he would negotiate with the insurance companies a lot of the times. He wouldn't get a lawyer. He'd take a dive, let the insurance company reach out to him and be like, listen, this could all go away for 50 grand. You can fucking overnight me a check right now. I'll sign an NDA and we'll be done. And he did that over and over and over and over and over again. And he'd be like, hey, there's a fucking puddle over there. There's a puddle over there, like at Publix. He's like, Publix is good. I've sued them 4 or 5 times. He's like,
good for the money.
He's like, their insurance company is great. He's like, the adjusters can authorize up to 20. He's like, 20 grand in less than 48 hours.
He's a professional.
Oh yeah. He hasn't done it in a long time now, obviously, because he lost his legs and shit.
Well, it's hard to fake a slip and fall when you.
Exactly.
The legs are a big part of that.
I mean, I suppose he could fall out the wheelchair though.
If it. I'm not sure how, but it sounds like he'd pull it off.
I'm sure there's a way. Yeah,
there's a way.
I'm sure there's a way.
It.
He always says
it's really just his hobby at this point.
Yeah, he always says that it was like karmic because he would always like do that like Eddie Murphy bit, like, oh, I have no legs, and lost legs from it. But yeah, so like the point being is this is the kind of guy we're dealing with is when I'm talking about my dad. But like so yeah, we were doctor shopping and shit together, and fast forward through some time, and I'm seeing more and more doctors, and then I'm getting more and more fucked up too. Like I'm starting to do more and more pills, and eventually I end up with like a 30-40 pill a day habit, because I unfortunately inherited my dad's tolerance, and so I'm like doing like 30-40 pills a day, and eventually I end up getting arrested for doctor shopping, and that's what ultimately sent.
Is it because of the system, or
no? This was
implement that system
pre-system actually. So this was 2008 when I got arrested.
How'd you get arrested? Just a pharmacy or
no? So one of my buddies, Greg, he'd come buy pills from me. Like he'd buy like a 50 pack, 100 pack, whatever. And me just like trying to do him a solid. I didn't live in the best neighborhood at the time, and he'd like always. He worked during the day too, and I would always try to like look out for him. Like, listen, like you're gonna be driving home with a 100 pack or whatever. I'm like, I'm gonna give these to you in my bottle in case you get pulled over. You can be like, oh, he's a coworker. He left it in here. Like we could beat that charge.
Yeah,
easily. Fuck, the minute you get home, destroy this bottle, destroy the label.
Right.
Well, Greg's a slob. And like he had this like little like a Zuzu extended cab pickup, and he, instead of destroying the bottle, he like got home, like transferred them into something else, and threw them in the back like little extended cab with all like McDonald's wrappers and all his other bullshit. He's one of those guys. That happened like twice that I know of. Fast forward 6 or 7 months later, he gets pulled over by like the narcotics people, and they tear his truck apart for his own shit that he's doing. What do they find? 2 of my bottles.
All right.
And that's actually what started them investigating me, and they started going around to all the pharmacies and stuff and checking and looking into it. And back in those days, they really didn't have to have a subpoena or anything. They just go in there and strong on the pharmacy. We want this guy's records, or we're gonna burn.
Right.
They'd give him the records. That's actually like Rush Limbaugh, when he got in trouble for that, that's one of the ways he challenged it, was like, they didn't have a fucking subpoena. They should have never given you those records.
Right.
And had I known then what I know now, I may have been able to beat mine too. Maybe. I don't know. But at any rate, what they ended up finding was I used to have a rule, no doctors in Martin County, where I live. Because Martin County is much smaller than Palm Beach or Broward. But for a little while, there was this guy, Dr. Valef, in Martin County. It was just so goddamn convenient to have it in the same county, And so, but what I would do is I would see Valef, and I would drive all the way to Palm Beach County to go fill the script. Never fill Palm Beach or Broward County scripts in Martin County either. That was my other rule. Well, there was like 1 month I was like going down, and I had seen multiple doctors that day, and like my last doctor that I saw, I was short on filling the script because I used to try to fill them in office if they had an in-office dispensary. I had to borrow some money from somebody when I got back up to Stewart, and instead of driving back down to 45th Street, which is like, almost an hour away, I was like, I don't want to do that, and I took it to a pharmacy in Martin County and filled it. Well, these detectives, they went around talking to each pharmacy, And they find the 1 month that I happened to fill from Valef and fill from another doctor, and then that was all they needed because it was the same month, and that's what constitutes doctor shopping.
At that time,
obtaining a prescription for a substance of like therapeutic value, I think is the way the statute is written or something. And once they got that 1 month, then now they know who the doctors are, and they were able to like get me for the overlap, which was like January, February, March, April, and May, let's say, of 2008.
You didn't tell them about your high tolerance?
No. I was like,
gonna work.
Well, listen, I need and that wasn't even one of my
I'm
doctors.
a big guy.
Yeah, I'm a big dude. What the fuck? So, they got me for 5 counts of doctor shopping for that. And they actually originally charged me with trafficking too, kind of like that ghost weight type of thing, but they couldn't prove shit. If it was the feds, it probably would have been different. They arrested me for it, and they offered me 18 months, and I was smart enough to know that was a Godfather deal, and I just took it. I knew, I was like, I'm not going to even fight that. 18 months, I'll be in and out. Done, and I was at work release within like 8 months or whatever, so I went and did the time on that, and I knew I was going to prison too. So when they arrested me on the charge, instead of bonding out on it, I just sat. I knew I was going to prison for it because I knew I had 5 counts. The trafficking got dropped, and then on the 5 counts, I went and did 18 months on that, and then got out.
How old were you?
Shit, I was just turned 21 when I turned myself in. So when I got the arrest, when I knew a warrant was coming down, I should say, for the doctor shopping. So I kind of stayed on the run for a couple months. I wanted to turn 21 on the street, and then once I turned 21, I was like, I'll turn myself in and get it over with. Which I'm glad that I did, because 3 to 6 months later, I had other buddies that got doctor shoppings and shit, and they started getting bammed on them, 2 years apiece and stuff on them. So I got lucky, so I'm glad that I had the foresight to turn myself in, and I just didn't really want to be on the run forever because, well, what being on the run's like. It sucks in a lot of ways, and I didn't have your resources either. So
I was gonna say the doctor shopping. If you're going to multiple doctors like that, even 5, like that could be. I understand you're saying your pill habit was insane, so it's not as lucrative. But I mean, if you were just selling all those like that, like each one of those scripts is worth like $3,500 easy.
Yeah. No, and I was selling a lot too, and the problem is just to have enough supply,
right? Because that's the problem.
I was also not a onesie twosie dealer either. I was like, you'd get 100 or 50, or I have a few of my buddies, like my good friends, if they were strung out, I didn't want them getting taxed on them, I'd hook them up. But I would never really wanted to be the guy selling onesie twosie. Yeah. I wanted to sell 50 packs, 100 packs, stuff like that. And I had a couple connections that were getting them from straight from the pharmaceutical company or wherever. I don't know where they were coming from, but I could get them in great quantity, 1,000 at a time, 2,000 at a time. But those were not nearly as easy to find. I had a corrupt pharmacist that was pilfering them, and I'd buy 1,000 for 3,000 from her. But that wasn't consistent. The only way you could really consistently get a good supply was
doctor shopping.
Doctor shopping and sponsor people to go. So multiple people going for you and stuff.
Yeah, I wrote that book, Generation Oxy. And that was Doug Dodd. He did the same thing you did. One time he got pulled over with some pills, and he was and it was barely any pills.
Right.
And he ended up going to a buddy who had a script and said, hey, I need you to come in here, write an affidavit for my lawyer, be willing to testify. And his buddy was, it's funny, I don't think I even put this in the book, but he said I actually paid him to do it. He said because he's like when we wrote it, he explained it to me, and I took the notes, and then I wrote the story. But then afterwards, he was, what's f***ed up about that? He's like, reading that, I said, what? You make it sound like he just did it because I asked him. He actually made me pay him, and I was like, oh, you didn't mention that. That would have been good.
Right.
He's like, nah, man, that's not. He goes, you make it sound like it's a nice guy doing a buddy a favor. It wasn't.
Right. No, it was pay to play. Yeah, no, I mean, I get it. It's just, especially at that time, and it was all over the state of Florida, but South Florida, where I'm from, was the epicenter. And it was big up here too, Tampa and all that stuff too.
He drove down there, I think, once or twice. They ended up having a.
Most people did.
Yeah, they had there was one of the stores that was down there. It was like American Pain was down there.
Yeah.
And they ended up going there. And it was the same thing with doctor shopping. He and his buddy went and picked up homeless people or something, or laborers or something. I forget. drove him there. He's like, you got to sponsor him. You got to pay for an MRI. You got to pay
Everything.
for, like, you're dumping a ton of money into this. He goes, and then you're dealing with these drug addicts the whole fucking time. Like, they don't want to give you the drugs. They don't want to this. They want to take off on you. They want to.
Right.
Yeah, it's.
I tried to send people that weren't drug addicts.
Yeah.
Just normal people that wanted to make some money.
Yeah, he had a few of those, but they're
hard to find.
Very few, because they get hooked on the pills and they want more and more and more.
Right, right. Because if you send addicts, it's like they're going to try to figure out a way to go without you and all this other kind of shit. So I get 18 months. I take the deal. I go to joint. I got lucky. I didn't have to go to like a YO prison, a youthful offender prison, which is just another level of gladiator school, basically. Right. I go to a regular prison. I go to Marion. Which is up in Ocala. I was on the main unit for a couple months, like way back in like what they call the T buildings, and that prison's old. It's from the 40s. And I was in the very, very, very back of the one T building, and the T buildings are just like they sound like they're T buildings, and they're like, you know, like this. There's an officer station in the middle. There's an upper and lower tier that way, upper and lower tier that way, upper and lower tier that way. Well, at this particular dorm I was in, the upper tier was AC confinement, so administrative confinement before you've been sentenced to confinement. And then I was in the lower tier, and that was just regular general population. And I was in the very last room all the way in the end, and it's one of the oldest dorms, and there's a huge exhaust fan at the end of that hallway. Mm-hmm. And it's just like whoa, 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 just like very like a movie you'd imagine like Cary Grant or some shit from like the 40s or 50s is in, like, you know, yeah, I'm doing time in prison, see? Like, right. Just very, like, you know. But it was super laid back, to be honest with you. Like, if you know how to, because I'd done all the juvenile time, like, I know how to do time.
Right.
You know, to stay the fuck out, mind my own business, stay the fuck out of some shit. Like,
don't borrow money.
Yeah.
Be polite. Don't talk about people. Like,
respect, respect. Right. You know? I didn't really have much problem, and I'm not a pussy, so I'll fight for my shit if I need to.
Right.
But I'm not going to go looking for it either, you know, and I'm not in gangs or nothing. What is the saying? Like, the 3 Gs: stay away from the gays, the gambling, and the gossip.
Right.
You
know, the guys that I've only heard about a few people that got fucked up that didn't have it coming. Almost always you bring it on yourself.
Fucking A.
What were you doing? You know, what were you thinking?
Every person that I've ever seen, like, either get poked up with a knife or get fucked up in general, they deserved it. Right. Most of the time. I've deserved it.
I've said that over and over. Yeah. I've always said, look, I know it sounds fucked up, but if you get stabbed or you get fucked up in prison, you had it coming. Like, it's not just suddenly somebody looks at you and not that this doesn't happen, but it's rare.
Exactly.
But, you know, somebody to look at you and decide, I hate him, and they just come up and run up and start stabbing you. Like, that's not what happens. You know, you ran up a gambling debt, you didn't pay it. The guy gave you multiple opportunities to pay it. Then he told you to check in.
Right.
You know, this went on for fucking 2 months, and finally it's like, okay, well, either I have to do something, or every single person's going to say, hey, I get to steal from you. Yeah. Because you won't. We now know you won't do anything. So now I'm just fucked.
Right.
So I don't have a choice.
He can't lose his respect either.
Right. Either I have to go to another place.
Right.
Or I can do something to you.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly. No, and like, again, like, to your point, you already said it too. Like, not that it doesn't happen. And once in a while, you've got that bug motherfucker who just, I don't like the way Cox's face is, like, and I'm going to poke his ass up. But that's exceedingly rare.
Yeah.
Like, it does happen, maybe, but like, that's got to be a mental health case or something, you know? But yeah, it was like, Marion was really fairly chill. Like, I had a cool bunkie. It was a lifer. You know, and in Florida, they don't separate.
Right.
Like, you're going to be in prison. Like, your bunkie's going to be doing triple life. Mm-hmm. And you're going to be a freaking 21-year-old white boy that's, you know, doing a 18-month skid bid on freaking doctor shopping charges, you know. And no in between. And it's going to be across the gambit. So, but my bunkie was cool. And yeah, we liked it. And, like, everything was cool. Back on track, so Marion was like really fairly chill. I was in the main unit for longer than I probably should have been. I went to the work camp, hung out at the work camp for a while, put in for work release, went to work release the first time, and that was, like I said, my first bid, and went to work release, and I was at Fort Pierce work release that time. I got a job in a bar, being a prep cook, and my homegirl I grew up with, like, lived right around the corner. It was great, like, everything was cool. I was getting close to going home, like probably 8-9 weeks from going home, and that prison was overseen by Martin Correctional, and there was a lady that worked there that was like a friend of my mom's, and her and my mom happened to have a falling out around that time. So she went to her bosses and said him being there is a conflict of interest and made me get transferred. So I got transferred down to West Palm work release. So when I got transferred down to West Palm work release, I was so close to going home. I wasn't even trying to get a job. Like, it was just stupid. I just kind of hung out there for like my last month.
Right.
And I got out and whatever. So I got out like December 22nd of 2009, I think it was. You know, when I first got out, I was being a good boy. I was trying, like, I was like, yeah, I'm done with all the bullshit. Like, I'm not doing the pills. I'm not going around the wrong people. I'm not, none of that. I'm not doing none of that. Like, and I was just working. I was working 2 jobs immediately, just saving up my money and shit. And a common theme here, like, for me, like, even though I didn't expound on it, is like women.
Right.
You know, and so I've been in prison for the past 2 years. I'm 21. You can imagine, like, I'm trying to get boxed at any time I can, you know?
Right.
And so I was like hanging out with my buddy's girlfriend a lot. Wasn't messing with her, but I was hanging out with her a lot. Hanging out over there one night, and I see some like knockout come, and I'm like, God damn. And like another one of our mutual friends, homeboy, this kid Timmy, he's kind of a dork. And he's like, we're like sitting there hanging out, and he's like, oh, well, like, you know, because I'm like, you're trying to break the ice with this freaking hot girl. and Timmy was like, so, like, how was prison, Anderson? And all my friends call me Anderson. And I'm just like looking at this motherfucker, and I'm like,
what a dick.
You like, really?
Did he do it on purpose?
Oh, it's totally on purpose.
Oh, I thought.
Totally on purpose. I'm like, you motherfucker. Like, on purpose to be a dick to, like, make me look bad or something. So I'm like, you hater ass motherfucker. I'm like, you don't even stand a chance with this girl anyway because you're a dork, like, straight up. So I'm like, all right. And I just like kind of looked at him for a minute. I was like, well, Timmy, you know, I knew my life hit an all-time low when I'm jerking my dick in a porta potty on a prison farm in North Florida, and the girl like fell out of her seat laughing because she thought it was funny. And like at that moment, he was just kind of like,
damn it,
yeah, like,
you made that work,
foiled. Like, somehow you made that work. And then also, like, when she found that funny, I'm like, I can work with this.
Yeah.
So anyway, like, I like tell, like, I left a couple more times, talked to her a little bit, and then like told my homegirl Lindsay, I'm like, hook me up. And I end up start talking to that girl for a little bit. I don't want to say her name on here, but she was in Playboy. She's very pretty, very, very good looking girl. So I kind of talked to her for a bit, messed around with her for a little bit. And this is during my, like, I'm being a good boy phase. Fast forward like a month or so ish, and I end up like popping by one of the homeboys' house a few times, who's like still doing pills and selling and shit. And I wasn't using her or nothing, but I'd like stop by and see them because they're my friends. Finally, like, I ended up using. When I used, and it hadn't become like a bad habit again yet. I was just using a little bit, weekends, whatever. And then I'm there on like a random like Tuesday night, and like when I get there was already some girl there, and she's like a little 5-foot spinner, like, you know, 5-foot brunette, 105 pounds soaking wet. All right. Super cute. And I'm like, damn. And like, but I'm not really trying. I don't know anything about this girl's background. I don't know her. I don't know if she's got a man. I don't know nothing. I know she's buying pills, you know. Right. So I'm like there buying pills or whatever. And I introduced myself to her, of course. And I was at my buddy Travis's house, and we're like just kind of small talking or whatever. I was in the middle of getting my license reinstated at the time too. So I like rolled up on a bike after work too. So it's like super not doing great. I've really only been out like a month and some change. Anyway, as I leave, I get a text from Travis, and he's like, hey, he's like, remember that girl that was just here, Megan? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, that's her name? Yeah, Megan. Okay, yeah. And he's like, well, listen, she was like, he's cute, like, give him my number. And I'm like, bet. And he's like, you know, I give it like a couple days before you call her and shit. I'm like, nah. I'm like, I know, I've never played that game. I'm like, I'm gonna text her or whatever right away, like whatever. And I text her like 2 hours later, and we just start texting. And this is, you know, it was 2009, so you still had to do the ABC. You know, we're like just texting all whole ton. Like, so we text like all fucking night that night, and like all night the next night, and that one went on for a couple nights and stuff. And I realized like me and this chick have a lot in common. Now, mind you, the chick that was a knockout was a knockout. She was a bag of air, dude. She was so stupid.
A lot of times that's what happens.
Yeah, just bad.
They don't have to develop the personality because everything comes so easy.
Yes, and like, and not to speak bad about her because she was a sweet girl, but like, like she'd be like, "Why are you always using such big words and stuff?" And I'm just like, "Oh my god!" Like, sorry, like I'm having to like give her vocab to like deal with my vernacular. Like, anyway. So me and Megan like hit it off hardcore, you know, and I like come to realize pretty quickly that like it seems like she's like the female version of me, like same like the same obscure punk rock music, like everything. I'm like, interesting. So we hadn't got a chance to hang out yet, and then after like a week or so of talking, like she happened to be off on like a Friday night. We hang out like with a mutual kind of like a double date scenario. And I tell this to like kind of show you the progression, but like we hang out. We go to like fucking bowling of all things. We leave the bowling alley, and I remember like her friends were driving us back to her house. Like before we got there, the friends kind of like oh, like we'll drop you off, and then like we'll drop Anderson off after, and Megan just was like, no, he's coming with me, and like I remember the girl just looking at her like being like pretty jealous, feeling some kind of way about it, you know. She's like, no, he's coming with me. And then like I'm like, okay. So like we get dropped off, and then her and I go to the bar and like get a couple drinks down the road. As we're leaving the bar, it became like and it was like, all right, well, you're gonna give me a ride back to my house or whatever. And she's like, you're not staying the night? And I'm like, bet. You know. So like now like we're getting to this point where like we both like each other a lot. Like I'm like trying not to like f this girl the first time I hang out with her. I end up like letting her know that I have a blue, I have a Roxy on me. We end up like splitting a blue or whatever, and hanging out. One thing leads to another. Let your imagination take care of that. Right. But one thing leads to another, and like, you know, me and this girl just have like insane connection though. Like, but besides just the bedroom stuff, like also like in general. And like it went from like that first night I was hanging out together, she gave me a ride home the next day, and then like 2 days later, like stay the night over there again, mind blow, like come back, like go home. Then like the following like weekend, I like went over there on like Friday, and I'm not sure I ever went back home.
Right.
Like I was staying with my mom. I'm sure I was like she was just like, you stay here now. like I said, originally I was trying to be a good boy, and then like her and I were like doing some pills or whatever. I was like really scared to sell again and stuff because everybody was snitching. Like this one set up that one, and that wasn't. And I've been gone for the last 18 months, so I don't know who's snitching and who I shouldn't talk to and who I shouldn't deal with. I'm like scared to sell, but then now we're getting high all the time. And then it just became like all we did like every day was like I would either work or do odd jobs or whatever to make money myself. She would be a waitress. Just all of our money pretty much. We were staying together like at her mom's house, and all of our money pretty much went to blues. Anyway, but like again, is I don't want to sell or nothing. Like I don't have any way to like supplement it. It's getting expensive because we're both doing them, and my tolerance came back, like, you know. And like basically we would just like in the mornings like wake up and like get all ready and stuff. Like I'd go out and like make money or whatever, and then she'd work her restaurant job or whatever. And it's pretty much just like work throughout the day, like get a bunch of money together. You know, we'd have some blues left over from the night before, so we weren't sick the next day. But like work, like wake up, get ready, get our stuff together, go to work, pool our money, get a bunch of drugs, go home, get high, and then for like hours on end because opiates do that to you. And that was like my life with her basically. So that's like all we like, literally that's all we did. So like that's what I was doing with her, and money got tighter and tighter, and then eventually, you know, she gave me some shit to like, here, like take this to the gold buying place. I thought it was hers. I tell you, like if I knew it was stolen, I would tell you. Like I knew it was stolen. I didn't know, man. Like I legitimately didn't know, because had I known, I wouldn't have done it.
Right.
I would have tried to find like a fence to sell it to, or like melt it down, and like,
you wouldn't have given your ID or
like I'm not that stupid. So like I legitimately thought it was just like her shit, you know. Maybe she got it for her first communion or some shit. Like she's like Irish Catholic too. So anyway, that happened a few times. Like I pawned shit or sold it to the gold buying place or pawned it or whatever. That happened. And then she actually ended up like stealing some shit from my mom while we went over there for like dinner or some shit one night. She sold that stuff. My mom noticed that a couple days later, and then asked me straight up, like, did you take any of my stuff? Like, are you using it again? But I'm like, no, I can tell you, Mom. I'm like, but no, I swear to God I didn't. She's like, all right, well, I'm going to make an insurance claim then, because all my shit's like insured. It's not like my mom had crazy jewelry. It's just, it was on the homeowner's insurance policy. Also around this time, Megan's family like had some money. Like her mom had some dough. Her dad definitely has some dough. He lived out of state somewhere, I don't know. But her mom had some dough, and like unbeknownst to me, like a couple times we like went to have dinner with her mom, like sat down to have dinner with her mom, and then Megan's like, oh, I'm running to the store real quick. She like run to the store and come back, and all I know, I knew she was doing something flammery wise. I just didn't know exactly what. But she would like, we'd go from like 0 to 100. She'd have no money. I'll run to the store real quick. She'd come back with like a pack of cigarettes for her, a pack of cigarettes for me, and like $1,000. And I'm like, where'd this $1,000 come from?
Right.
But I'm not gonna ask any questions either. I know you're doing something that's not right. I'm also not gonna ask questions. I'm gonna find out she was whacking her mom's bank account, just withdrawing money.
Right.
Her mom had like in her like everyday money market, I don't know if she had sold a house or what. She had like 870 G's in there though. So her mom didn't notice for a long time. Fast forward some time, and then finally one day we're like sleeping in bed like first thing in the morning, and like her phone just starts blowing up. It's her mom. And then her mom's like, and she like didn't answer, like the voicemail. She didn't answer it. She's like, oh, my mom knows. I'm like, your mom knows what? She's like, I've been like whacking her bank account for like $1,000. Like, hey, where do you think I've been getting all this money from? And I'm like, and I'm like, well, is your mom gonna press charges on you? I'm like, she had plenty of money in there, because she had told me like beforehand, like, yeah, my mom's got like 900 grand in the bank. Is your mom gonna like press charges on you? And she was like, no, I'm just gonna tell her like I need help, but I'm probably gonna have to go to rehab and shit. And I'm like, okay, like whatever, like yeah, we should. And then like she finally calls her mom back, and her mom's like, fuck you, like you little fucking cunt, you're going to jail, and so is your boyfriend. And I'm
your
like,
boyfriend? How'd I get involved?
Come on, exactly. I'm like, how the fuck? So like, this is like going back and forth, and I'm like, we gotta go, get out of here, we gotta go. And she's like, well, and she's like, I'm like, dude, your mom already called the cops. I'm like, Megs, we gotta go. She's like, you sure? I'm like, we gotta go. I'm like, we're going to fucking jail. I'm like, I don't know how I'm involved in this, but like, we gotta get. I don't want anything to do with the cops. I just got out of prison 7 months ago or whatever. So we haul ass in her car, and like as we were hauling ass, like the cops were pulling into the neighborhood.
Right.
So like we leave, we go stay at my buddy Will's house, who lives out in the middle of East Bum nowhere. It's like a place a couple times I've been on the run from the law over the years that I hid from them. We stay out there for a good week or two, I think. Come to find out, I had like called like the bail bondsman to see if there was a warrants out for me and shit. And come to find out, some of that jewelry that I pawned was not in fact Megan's. It was her mother's. And then so now I've got warrants out for dealing in stolen property. I'm like, fuck. I'm like, I'm like, that's a freaking second-degree felony. I just got out of the joint. Like, I'm. So then I'm like, well, fuck it. I'm going back. And Megan had like stolen a checkbook from her mom. So I like do some things, get us some money. And that went on for a few days. Like got us a good bit of money. Stayed in the hotel one of the days. Then we go back to my buddy Will's house, and we're there first thing in the morning one day, and we just like wake up, and I just never forget. Like I wake up and we're like going at it in the spare bedroom, and like I would just hear, and I'm like, how the f- do the cops know? Like I already knew it was a cop. Like how the f- do they know we're here of all places? I'm like, either somebody had to tell them we're here, or like I don't fucking understand. So I knew it was the cops, and we like hid from them for like a while because we're like in this interior bedroom that you never know we were there, but her car was there. I'm like, well, I'm never gonna see you again. They're probably gonna give me 10 years. I'm like, oh. And I'm like, honestly, like, you don't have a record, and you're like this like pretty like girl from the other side of the tracks, like whose family has money. I'm like, maybe just tell them I made you do this stuff. I'm like, I'm going to prison regardless. So like, I'll take the fall for it. Like, just tell them I like was abusive and like made you do it. She's like, okay. And we just like kind of hide. We hide for a while, and I'm just like, Meg's like, we can't keep hiding. I'm like, they're gonna wait us out. Like, whatever. We're gonna go out there and we, you know, turn ourselves in or whatever. And I remember them like sitting us down, and the female detective being like, Jesus, honey, like, look at you, you're like on death's door, like talking about Megan, like, because she had lost weight. She, like I said, she was like 105 pounds soaking wet, so like she was probably more like 95 right then. So, and then she's like, and you're like Mr. Babyface, like you can't even tell that you're strung out on drugs. She's like, it's crazy. Fast forward, they take us to jail, and they hit me with 9 counts of dealing in stolen property in a credit card fraud. And I end up kind of glossing over some stuff in jail because it's not important, but I end up, they come at me with an offer for 40.4 months and 4 years probation, and I'm like, done.
How much?
40.4 months.
What does that mean?
That's my sentence. 40
months?
Yeah, 40.4 months. Yeah.
Never heard the 0.4.
They do that shit sometimes. It's weird. Yeah. If you look it up online,
months.
If you look it up online, it'll say 40 months. But I've known a lot of people that get the 0.4 or whatever. It's weird. But I got a 40.4 months plus 4 years probation. So when I went to court next, or no, I asked the public pretender, I'm like, listen, see if you give me straight time. Like 5, I'll do 5, straight up. Well, when I asked for 5, like he comes back, he's like, you can do the 40.4 plus 4, or you can do 8. I'm like, I'll take the 40.4,
Yeah.
Of course, I sign it, and that was that. I go off to prison again. I stay in contact with the girl. Like most of the time, actually, she kept writing me for like a long time. And time goes on, like I stay in contact with her. I'm trying to get the work release again because I can be down by home. And I went to Franklin Correctional up in the Panhandle. It's up in Carabel, Florida. It's right near Apalachicola, middle of bumfuck nowhere, just like a lot of these prisons. And that place was just like super locked down, super like controlled movement, and good old boy network. Like they're using taxpayer money, like out at like the maintenance area. Like there was a dude that like he was like the welder on the welding squad, and literally all that fucking dude did was build smokers out of steel that they bought with, prison material money.
Right.
And he'd build every officer, sergeant, lieutenant, whatever, had a fucking badass smoker built by this dude, towed away. He would even build the trailers for them.
Right.
And it's just all prison money that's building all this shit. I just always, like, they just got away with that kind of shit all the time. And, like, they'd have, like, their staff appreciation day, and, like, they have, like, that same dude that welded, like, would help them make barbecue. And, dude, they'd be, like, smoking, like, 36 Boston butts on, like, just all bought with taxpayer money. Just, like, filling up their cars with gas and just, name it, man. Just constantly doing shit like that. Anyway, my whole thing was just, like, get to work release. Originally, like, I was still talking to Megan at the time. I was like, I'll get to work release. I'll get to see her again. Everything will be back to normal.
Right.
Because, like, I loved this girl to the death. Like, we were toxic in a lot of ways, but like Bonnie and Clyde, like also super close in many ways. And it just like all I wanted to do was get to work release. It was like right before I put in, she just like dropped off the face of the planet, and I didn't hear from her. I didn't know that she went to jail again for violating her probation.
Oh, okay.
But she dropped off the face of the planet. As time went on, like I get to work release. I end up seeing her once. And I could tell, like, shit was different. She's just like, oh, I love you to death, but, like, my family, and I'm like, oh, whatever, bitch. So,
what happened to you? Went from I love you to love this girl to death to whatever, bitch.
Like, well, no, I was pissed because, like, why have you been writing me for 4 fucking years?
Right.
I love you. Pretty much riding out with me for 4 years, sending me pictures all the time, and, like, all that kind of shit to like, oh, well, now that you're in front of me, like, I'm gonna let you, you know, come give you some sympathy, whatever, because you're at work release, but like, I don't know, my family, and then I would like read, I don't want to be out of my daddy's will or something, you know, what it really like boils down to. So I'm just like again, like, why keep up this charade for the past 4 years then? Obviously you felt this way for a while, like,
I mean, she
just pissed me off.
You know, it was, you know, it's like writing the guy, the soldier, to give him some hope to get through it. You know, in a way, it was probably, you know,
and it did help.
I was going to say,
but like at the same time, it's like you're expecting this all these 4 years or whatever. Then you're like,
I hear you.
What the fuck, you know? And like, don't get me wrong, I could have just been like normal guys.
Did you ever see Jarhead?
Yeah,
same thing.
Right.
Same thing.
Right. He'd be like, most guys, it's just like 2 seconds after they're gone, it's like Jody's over there. You know what I mean?
I mean, you know, that's, but you know, it's hope that gets you through it.
Right. And like, and the truth is, like, I knew what her sex drive was like. I'm sure Jody was over there as soon as I was going, but she at least wrote me, so that's cool. You know, so you know what I mean. But that's whatever. Like, so. I was just like, well, like, if you're that worried about your family, like, then, like, don't talk to me. Like, I basically was like, don't talk to me no more then. Bye-bye. Like, and then I just, like, I'm at work, at least, like, my biggest focus is just, like, saving up as much money as possible. I don't want to go back to Martin County when I get out. I want to save up as much money as possible, get a place down in Palm Beach County. I'm just, like, working as much as humanly possible there.
Where were you working?
I was working at an auto body shop called Diamond Auto Painting in Lake Park, Florida. And so my buddy Dan, who worked at this custom truck shop right down the street, this guy I was telling you about, that was like, actually he was in prison, but he was a Abercrombie model at one point. He worked at this custom truck shop because he's actually a really good mechanic too, like lift kits and like all that kind of shit. And he used to walk past the auto painting place every day, and he saw help wanted signs. So when I got to work release, he's like, dude, I know you used to do like auto body and stuff like as a second job, like along with air conditioning, like I could probably get you a job. Like, bet, let me know. So I wasn't even there a week. I already had a job and so like everything was good, and like I got the job and was like working there, and I've always been a hard worker, like, and I want to know everything about everything. So like, just the way my mind works. So I'm like, I'm doing paint prep, I'm painting, I'm doing body work, I'm detailing, I'm helping the manager with the weekly business report, doing like you know, our gross profit and, you know, taxable blah blah blah, you know, that goes on. I'm just like doing that for a long time. I was there for 10 months or so, and so around this time I start like having these two officers kind of fuck with me a little bit at the work release center. They start like ransacking my room and like holding me in from going to work and like all that kind of stuff. And it's just like, I don't understand why, because I was like textbook model prisoner.
Right.
Like I leave for work at 5:45 in the morning, and I'm not back until 8 o'clock at night, I think. And all I do is like, I get back at 8 o'clock, I do my chain gang workout, I go do muscle ups and pull ups and dips and shit, and I take a shower and I go to bed, and I'm same thing the next day. So I'm like, why are these guys f***ing with me like this? They show up at my job a couple times. They were supposed to do, but they never did before. They only had shown up once before in 10 months. Now they've showed up 3 times. It's just weird. So like, we're progressing along, and then I'm like telling my bosses and stuff, like, I don't understand what's going on. Like, these guys are f***ing with me. So like, they'd help me in for work, and they would notice that like my boss would come get me. Like, if I didn't make my bus ride, which was a 2-hour bus ride to work, like, I'd call my boss, like, dude, these fuckers held me in from work. He'd drive over and get me and bring me to work. And I like, it seemed like that pissed them off, like that somebody would drive out of their way to get me. So these guys are messing with me. And mind you, like I said, I'm like a model prisoner. I'm just working like 12, 13 hours a day, coming back to the center. I'm like going to church on Sundays, every Sunday. During that time, like a few months prior to this, like probably July, August or so, I meet a chick at church, and we kind of start talking, just friendly, innocently enough, just talking at church. She's not from the female work release center. She's not whatever. She's a free world chick that, as it turns out, is a teacher at the school attached to the church. And we're talking, and it's progressing as time goes on. And, obviously I'm interested in her. She's smoking hot, tall, blonde chick. And, she ends up becoming my girlfriend. And, like
you're not trying to fuck up.
Yeah, I'm not trying to fuck up. I'm like literally on the straight and narrow. I'm done, sick and tired of being sick and tired. I've been in and out of institutions since I was 13, 14. Like, I'm done. I'm not selling any drugs. I'm not doing anything. I'm not even like thinking about doing drugs. I just want to like get my shit together. And I met this chick that's awesome. She's a teacher. Like, she's an awesome chick. Like, pastor's daughter, like from the Midwest, whatever. So, I'm just like on the straight and narrow. And I like telling her that, like, man, I got these officers fucking with me, and I can't figure out why. I don't know why they're messing with me. This kind of comes to a head, like I said, like February. And I'm at work one day where I'm doing the weekly business report with my manager, Diego. And, we're going through doing our weekly business report. And all of a sudden, the two officers show up at work. And they're like, can you come out here with us, please? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, show us where the toolbox is. I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, the toolbox where you keep your money. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I don't have a toolbox. I'm at work release, dude. I'm like, and I work here. Like, everything's provided by the shop. They're like, show us where the tool. Like, where's your little station where you work? And I'm like, well, technically, like, my title, like, I work here. You can see there is a toolbox here, but it's like got 10 years worth of dust on it. Like, it's not mine. I'm like, feel free to look through it. I'm like, there ain't no money. And they're like, listen, I'm going to level with you. We know you're selling blues on the compound. We know you're dealing drugs. And, people are getting high on the compound and da-da-da. And we know it's you. And I'm like, I don't know who gave you that information. I'm not doing shit. I'm like, if you, like, watched me, you would know I create no trouble there. I go to work, I come home. I go to work, I come home. That's it. I'm like, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm like, that's it. And they're like, yeah, well, we know, like, we have it on good authority that you're like, I'm like, how many times have you guys ransacked my room and found nothing?
Right.
Now you're here, you're going to find nothing. I'm like, I'm not doing anything. Like, have you considered maybe whoever told you this? Obviously somebody told you this. Have you considered maybe that source was wrong? And they're like, no. So they're like, oh, you think you're trying to be cute? Whatever. Come out here with us. And they bring me up by the van, which was parked out front. And they pat me down and like put me in the van. And they're like, listen, motherfucker, you're going to pay to play or we're going to take you to jail. And for those that don't know, in the joint, like, we call getting taken to jail going to confinement.
Right.
At least in the state. I don't know what they do in the feds, but that's going to confinement. So I'm like, dude, I don't have nothing for you. So then they like grab my wallet. No, you could draw $100 a week out of your inmate account for zooms and whams or whatever you want to spend the money on. So I've got like 90 of the 100 left. So they like, I'm back outside the van at this point. So they pluck the 90 out of my wallet and they're like, go back in there and get us some more money or you're going to jail right now. I'm like, fuck, I don't know what to do. I go in there. I'm like, I know my boss will give me some money to give to them. So I go in there. We had just taken like $370 or so from a bumper job that we did for a guy, and he paid cash. So I go inside and I tell the one officer to go around and go into the shop. I needed to talk to my boss. And I'm like, dude, these fucking guys are extorting me. Like, I need some dough to give these guys. And he's like, oh, what do you want me to do? Like, very like thick accent Diego had. He's like, well, what do you want me to do, Ryan? Like, I don't have money to give you. And I'm like, just give me something out of the till, motherfucker. And so he's like, I have that cash that we just took from the bumper job. I'm like, that should be enough to get them to go away. So he gives me like the $370 or whatever. I walk out back into the shop. And our shop was in like kind of a high crime area. So like as I'm walking out to the shop with the dough in my hand, I'm like, wait a minute. I'm going to position this fucker so he's right on candid camera.
Right.
Because we got cameras everywhere. So I give it to this one officer right on camera. Now mind you, backing it up, the officer I gave it to was Officer Brown. The other officer that's fucking with me is a fucking lieutenant.
Okay.
Named Eric Bowe. He's a lieutenant in a white shirt.
Right.
State. Like,
yes,
anyway.
There's no misidentifying them.
Yeah.
Or it's pretty obvious what's happening.
Yeah, and like it's pretty obvious they've been doing this. because you wouldn't be this brazen as your like first time. They've been doing this, and like I've told people, like when I've told this story, like if I was doing dirt, I would have gladly paid those motherfuckers and been like, here you go,
right,
whatever. But I wasn't, so I was kind of like righteously indignant about it. Like,
right.
like here I am trying to like actually live right, and like you're shaking me down.
Right.
And so
I don't have like I'm not making enough to keep doing this.
Right.
Right. So you've given me really one choice.
Right.
Like either I've got to, two choices. Either I've got to start doing it to pay you.
Right.
Or I got to figure out another way out of this.
Right.
Or I guess three choices. Or just go to you can go to
Just go.
In feds, it's the shoe. You can go to the hole. You can go to the hole.
Right.
For doing nothing.
Right. I can go to the box. I got to sell drugs to supplement the income to give them the money. Or I've got to report them somehow and hope that it's not one of their buddies. I give them money on camera. I walk back out with them to the van, and he's like, listen, we're going to be back Monday this is the lieutenant telling me this. He's like, we'll be back Monday for $500 more. We're going to meet you at that Benjamin Moore store right there across the street around lunchtime. You better have our fucking money, basically. I'm like, they leave. I go back inside. I'm like, oh my fucking God, dude. And we call our boss, the actual owner, Bob, and he's like, you gotta call the cops, the real cops.
Right.
And so we call the real cops. And we call our IT guy to come pull the camera footage and shit immediately because it's on a loop. It gets re-recorded every 72 hours. They said in court, like when the shit went to court, that like it was unclear what he gave the officer. It's clearly money.
Right.
But whatever. Point is, like Seth pulled the camera footage, and then PBSO, Palm Beach Sheriff's Office cop finally comes, and that cop, like when he realized I was on work release, he was a complete dick. But I'm like telling him what happened, and then it wasn't until, and I also called my girlfriend, and I was like, hey, baby, you need to get up here right now, because I don't know what the f*** is going to happen, but like, I want to see you if something goes down, like, get up here. And she had just gotten off work too, so she's just like threw something on, threw on some yoga pants, and hauled ass up there to see me. She had gotten there like probably 30 minutes after the cop, and by this time I'm sitting down like writing my statement out. And the cop was a dick all the way up to the point where I handed him my statement and he read it. And when he read it, he was like making these faces. I'm like, what? And he was like, well, nothing. You're not a dumbass.
Right.
And he's like, this is like the best, like the most well-written statement I've ever read in my life. And I'm like, thanks. And he's like, well, no, I just like normally guys in your position, they're a fucking dumbass. And
right.
He's like, why are you in prison? I'm like, drugs, dude. They make you a person you're not normally, whatever. So then he starts being kind of cool with me. And he's like, listen.
Did he see the footage? You show him the footage?
Yeah, he had seen the footage,
Okay.
And I showed it to him again once he read my statement. Then now he's like, okay, I see what's going on here. The beginning footage of them looking through a toolbox and all that too. We had all that. It was on camera. Them pulling up, them walking, like we had all that. So he's like, all right, well listen, PBSO probably won't touch this unless it's like a task force thing. He's like, would you be willing to wear a wire on these guys when they come back for the extra 500 so you can really, strip them? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like,
right.
I am no snitch. I'll never snitch on nobody, but like snitching on prison guards, fuck a prison guard. I will snitch on a prison guard all day long. Now, maybe if they were doing bad shit for me that was for my interest, that'd be different. But these guys are trying to extort me.
Down, yeah.
They're shaking me down. Them. I'll wear a wire on those fucking assholes any day. I'm like, yeah. So he's like, well, the FDLE might reach out Monday, like whatever. So I'm like, okay. We leave. I leave with my girlfriend. We go get dinner. And I don't know if they're just going to arrest me right when I get into the center. They don't. I go through the whole weekend. Everything's normal. I see her at church on Sunday. Everything was normal.
What's she saying?
She's just like, what? Like, what? Like, this is fucked up. Like, what are they can't do that. Like, this is people that haven't been in the system.
Right.
I always love when people that haven't been in the system say those words. They can't XYZ. Mm-hmm. And you're just like, oh, honey, you're a person. Yeah. You have no clue what you're talking about.
You've watched too much TV.
Yeah, they can and they will do whatever the fuck they want, whenever the fuck they want, however the fuck they want, legal or not. So, especially with the corrupt as Florida Department of Corrections is. So, fast forward to Monday morning. I'm walking out of the center. It's 5:45 a.m. Mind you, those two, like, this is important detail. Those two prison shit eaters, they work 8 to 4:30. I'm walking out of the work release center to go catch my bus, my first of 2 buses and 2-hour bus ride it takes to get to my job. I'm walking out at 5:45, and as I'm like probably almost a block away, a white van comes up on me, and it's these 2 motherfuckers, Lieutenant Bo and Officer Brown, in a state van, in uniform, at 5:45 in the fucking morning, when they should not even be on shift yet.
Right.
And they're like, get in the van. And I'm like, dude, oh my God, like, these guys gonna like fucking, they're gonna fucking go kill me and dump me in the Everglades. Like, but I really can't make a scene and say no either. So I roll with it. I'm like, hold the fuck on. I gotta grab my cigarettes. I grab my cigarettes, I get in the van, and we leave. And I'm like, they're like, we're gonna give you a ride to work. And I'm like, fuck, you know. I try to make them stop as many places as possible. Like I stopped and made them, like, bought a pack of cigarettes at this one store, made sure I'm on camera, notated in my brain what store it was, and I stopped at another store out by work. Same thing, made sure I'm on camera. And like I knew the owner of that store because I stopped there every day. And I'm like, hey, you know, like, you need to save this footage for me. So anyway, they get ready to work. Now, mind you, it's early as fuck. It would take me 2 hours to get there on the bus.
Right.
So we get there and it's super early. You know, we're just like sitting there, like do. I'm playing along with them like I'm gonna get them more money, but I got no money to give them. Right. You know, I'm just like waiting for one of my coworkers to get there, basically. So my one coworker gets there, Eddie, who's a great dude, but he'd come in at like 7 and he would always leave early on Friday. So he had no clue what happened on Friday. Right. So he comes in at like between 7 and 7:30, and he didn't know what happened on Friday, so he's emptying trash in the dumpster when he pulls up, and I'm like, Eddie, just be cool. He's like, oh, so you got a ride this morning, huh? I'm like, that ain't no ride. I'm like, those are those fucking assholes that keep messing with me. I was like, dude, they shook me down on Friday for money, blah, blah, blah. It's a long story. There's a police report underneath the desk in the office if you want to read it, but like, it's fucking bad. And he's like, motherfuckers, you know, he's a good old boy from North Carolina. He's like, them motherfuckers. I'm like, I need to stall them because like the FDLE and everybody was supposed to get involved. He's like, all right. So I proceed to like open up the shop and like just kind of go about my day. Like, hold on, guys, I got to look normal. And I stall as long as humanly possible. I stalled for like over an hour. I stall. And finally the lieutenant is just like, you're stalling. We're going to take your ass to jail. I'm like, oh, hold on. Like, all right. I'm done playing. I go back there. Eddie is on the phone with 911 at this point. And I'm like, dude, they're going to take me in, whatever. Eddie's like, take my phone, talk to the dispatch. He's like, go lock yourself in one of the cars. If they try to come in here, I'll scare them out of here. So, like 15 minutes go by, and I hear Eddie start yelling. And what I didn't know is, like, they're looking around trying to find me, and they looked in, like, one of Eddie's things, and Eddie pulls his gun on him. And because Eddie keeps the freaking 45 in his toolbox. Right. He's getting the fuck out my shop right now. And they're like, oh, we're just trying to help Ryan because he's got money he's not supposed to have, and we're going to deposit in his inmate account and da-da.
Well, they are brazen, right?
Brazen as fuck, man. And Eddie's like, that doesn't make no fucking sense. Like, how would that make any sense? You're going to help him? He's like, get the fuck out of my shop right now. So I'm in like a Jeep Grand Cherokee, like down on the floorboard, like talking to 911, like trying to explain what had happened Friday to her. And it's a nightmare. They find me in this Grand Cherokee, and they're pounding on the windows like, get out, motherfucker. After a few minutes, a PVSO cop car pulls up. As soon as the regular cop car pulls up, I jump out of the Cherokee. I said, listen, sir, you can arrest me right now, cuff me up. I'm like, I'll go wherever you, take me to county, take me wherever. I just don't want to go anywhere with them. I'm in fear for my life, blah, 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 blah. So he immediately cuffs me up, throws me in the cop car. He's like trying to talk to Bo and Brown, who like you can see like steam coming out of their ears as they're like trying to figure out a way to like make this make sense. Right. Because they've not thought of backstories to tell other cops, you know. So they're like, oh yeah, we were gonna do the thing for the stuff and the who's he what's it's and the whatcha-jiggers, and and the cop's like, okay, yeah, he's a ward of the state. I'm gonna give him back to you. So like. He makes a big scene, opens the back door, and then like leans in. He's like, Mr. Anderson, we were literally wiring up your boss at the Kmart around the corner. Fuck. And he's like,
These guys thwarted the plan.
He's like, we don't know why they picked you up early or what. He's like, but unfortunately, he's like, your boss is actually going to come here and try to be like, hey, can I just give you some money to squash all this? Maybe they'll take it, maybe they won't. And he's like, if it would have been nice if you could have called a little bit longer. Like, he's telling me this really fast,
right.
though. He's like, but listen, I got to let you go with them. He's like, but just know you're being followed. He's like, if you go back to the center, we're going to be watching. Nothing's going to happen to you. Like, we're not going to let them kill you or nothing.
Yeah,
So
they don't know that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, they could have killed me in that van and nobody would have known.
Right.
At least till I was dead.
They could take you in the fucking hole and do any number of things to you and say, we found him. He hung himself.
Right. Well, first they had to take me back to the work release center, but they could have fucking strangled me with a seatbelt in the fucking van and said,
I'm saying that doesn't mean that once you're in the place.
Oh, even worse.
It's even worse.
Yeah. So at any rate, they give me back to them, and then now they're like, haha, motherfucker, you thought you were going to get over on us. I'll show you. Like, I have way more power than you. Like, you're going to lose all your gain time. You're fucked. I'm going to give you a line to staff DR. I'm going to give you a da-da-da-da DR. Whatever. I'm like, fuck you. Both of you, you know. And in the end, we start driving back to the center. Or no, we're about to start driving back to the center. Diego, my manager comes up and is like, hey, can I just give you guys like $1,000? We'll just squash this all.
Right.
They were smart enough to be like, no, because like too much had happened. We drive back to the center, and I'm like so nervous the whole ride back. Like, matter of fact, the guy, Officer Brown, was sitting behind me because the Officer Bo douche was like, if he tries anything funny, wrap that seatbelt around his neck and fucking strangle his ass. Literally, like, told him to do that, and which he didn't do, but could have happened. We get back to the center, and we're back at the center. They put me in the officer station, and they immediately like go off to the side to go try to figure out their stories. There's some officers working that know me, and they know I don't cause any trouble, and they're like, Anderson. Then Bo comes back in, and he tells us one officer, Officer Campbell. He's like, hey, listen, Campbell, I need you to put that we signed out the van at 0800, right at 0800.
Right.
And then we just got back, right now. And Campbell's like, but you didn't. You were already gone when we got here. And he's like, I just need you to do it. Like, I'm the lieutenant. Just do it. And, like, when he walked away, I liked Campbell. I painted his car. I'm like, don't do it, Campbell. My lawyer's going to have a field day with this shit. I was like, I promise you, you don't know what's in motion here, but shit's about to go down. And he's like, shit. You think they'd do anything for my black ass? Man, f*** that cracker. I'm not doing shit for him. And, like, literally, like, no sooner did he say that, maybe 5 minutes later, like, the fucking doors to the center, like, fly open, and it's, like, the warden, the Florida State Inspector General, PBSO, FDLE, like, all those people. And they're like, where's Ryan Anderson? Where's Ryan Anderson? Like, where's he at? They, like, make sure that I'm okay, and they're like, get him out of handcuffs right now, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, where's Bo and Brown at? And they were, like, there's a road prison right next door to the work release. They're, like, at the road prison, like, off in a corner, like, talking. So they grab them, start questioning everybody and everything, but, like, there's a lot of damning evidence against them already.
Right, because their story already doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
At the very least, you've already lied on a police report.
Right, which is, at the very least, enough for them to get fired.
Right.
Let alone,
I think you can get, like,
charged.
I think you can get 2 or 3 years for lying on a police report.
And it's worse when it's an official making that kind of thing. So I get questioned by the FDLE and all these people and all that, and they're just kind of corroborating what I've already said. And then the real kick in the ass about this thing is, like, I was doing good at work release. Instead of letting me stay and finish out my last 55 days or whatever that I had left, when this all went down, they send me back to Martin Correctional again, which oversees West Palm work release by this time. They put me in AC confinement, so I'm in administrative confinement. I'm in the box, and I just, like, I'm back there for like 45 days, I think, when I didn't do anything wrong, you know?
Right.
So
I was going to say, what's funny is, like, the warden of the prison has the right to release you.
Exactly.
Like, the warden, they could have just gone and explained it to the warden. He could have said, okay, you know what? Do you have somewhere to go?
Right.
Like, we're going to send you home. Like, you're done.
Right.
It's 45 days. You're done. You're safer at home.
Which is exactly, I actually, when I got interviewed by the FDLE, I actually suggested, I'm like, they can't just do an emergency release.
It's 45 days. It's nothing. That's a joke.
It's
I've
really
already been
nothing.
locked up for years.
Exactly. I asked like that, and I was just like, and then when they said that they were going to send me to Martin, I was like, you guys are like playing with my life. You don't know what buddies they have at Martin or whatever that could mace me to death back there in the box. Like anything could happen. But no, I do my 45 of my last 60 days in the box. Then I go to Belgrade for like my last 15 days or whatever, 14 days. Then I get out. I get out, and once I'm out, like this whole case and everything's just been like crazy. My girlfriend has
been in the newspaper, right? Because the articles I read in the newspaper.
Yep.
So by this point, they've arrested the guys. Have they charged them and everything?
Not by the time I got out.
Okay.
No, the arrest came later. However, like my girlfriend, like once I get sent to the box and everything, she's just like beside herself, and she's like feverishly writing me, trying to figure out where I'm at. The FDLE had questioned her, and then they like questioned her, and then like when they sent me to the box, I think they like told her they didn't know where I was at, which freaked her out. She had no way to talk to me to know. She's like, what do you mean you don't know where he's at? So anyway, all these things happen, and it's just like a whirlwind of fuckery. It's like something out of a bad B movie, you know? And we're going through the whole kit and caboodle here, and are they ever going to charge these guys? Like, no, I'm out. Are they ever going to charge these guys? Like, what the I knew they were suspended, like, right away.
Right.
Without pay. Well, finally, I want to say it was like, so I got out tax day 2013. I want to say it was like September. They finally officially charged both of them with like official misconduct and a couple other things. And so, they arrest them, they charge them. The white shirt guy got a good lawyer, Michael Salnick. He's pretty good. He gets a pretty good lawyer. Brown has like a public pretender, and like union doesn't do shit for him. So anyway, I end up hearing they get arrested. I'm like, finally, yeah, they get arrested. And just to show you like how slow the wheels of justice move in our system, if it was me, I would have been on trial in 3 months.
Right.
Because these guys were prison guards. It was 3 years before one of them went on trial, which was the lieutenant. They wanted to always try the lieutenant first because they're like, some may say our case is weaker on the lieutenant, but like, that guy. He's a white shirt. Like, fuck him. So, like, he's higher up, whatever. So, long and short, we end up going to a trial. And I think his lawyer with depositions and all this, and his lawyer is like very clear. His lawyer is going to be like, attack my credibility, attack my credibility, attack my credibility. I wish it was recorded because I mopped the fucking floor with his lawyer. I mean, I mopped the floor. I made him look like a fool. Just, I have a good memory and stuff,
right.
But he tried every way to trip me up and get me to, get a rise out of me and stuff. And I mopped the fucking floor with that fool. And and even the dude Bo, like at one point it was like, can you identify that man in the courtroom? And I was like, yeah, he's the guy over there with the cheap Men's Warehouse suit on and the bad hairpiece or whatever.
Right. And
like the whole courtroom was like, like it was pretty funny. He gets convicted at trial, bam, on everything. The judge and I got to do like my victim impact statement, and I wrote like a solid gold impact statement.
Right.
Which part of it was just like me trying to rub it in, but part of it really was like, this is fucked up, dude.
I'm trying to change my fucking life here.
Yeah, like I really, truly was trying to change my life. Like, now mind you, when it finally went to trial 3 years later, that girl that was my girlfriend is now my fucking wife.
Right.
We got married. And I'm just like working my ass off to get my shit together. The ex-girl had, that I was with before I went to prison a second time, our restitution was joint and several. Who do you think had to get stuck paying all the restitution? Right. This guy. And by the time the 3 years had elapsed, I had already gotten off probation, paid off all my restitution to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars, gotten married, like all this shit. Like all I was trying to do was get my shit together, right. Man. That's it. I wrote this impact statement that was just pretty much like a big you, and like you're entrusted for the
you're in a position of trust, and you're supposed to be keeping me. Part of it is part of it is, yeah, you're a jailer. You're supposed to keep me incarcerated, and following the rules, but you're also supposed to, you're entrusted with my safety.
Yes.
So
yeah, they I forget what there's like a 3 C's or something. It's like care, something, and control. Care, comfort, and control. Care, something rather than control. Like the DOC uses. Yeah, they just violated all that shit, and like the one guard, the Officer Brown, I like almost felt bad for him. I didn't, but almost, because he was like Bo's puppy dog.
Right.
I guarantee you that pussy would have never done that without Bo. He's a pussy. And so, but like following Bo around, like, I can make a couple $100 raggedy ass dollars. Like,
well, how many people were, how long had they done that? What do you think? Because you're clearly not the first person they'd ever done that to.
I think that Bo had been doing it for years.
Right.
As like almost as long as he's been working at the center. Brown hadn't been an officer long enough. I think I was probably one of the first people that he ever like.
And it went way wrong.
It went way wrong. Lost his career over it. So once Bo got convicted, Brown took a deal. Lost his career and got like, he was just barely like at that point where they get a vest.
Right.
I think it's like 3 or 5 years for them. So they're just barely getting the vest. So he lost everything. Not to mention like all the time he was out on admin leave and all that kind of shit. So like that's basically what happened. And like after it happened, like I had other guys like, yeah, they were making me pay rent too. But the thing was, is like those guys wouldn't come forward because they were doing shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, dude, it's just the Florida system's so corrupt. Like I can like go on about it, but that's a story for another time. But like the fact that he only got a few years too is just annoys the fuck out of me too. Like that guy deserved to get 10 years because he was also a piece of shit to prisoners.
Right.
From being in the feds too. Like we're already doing time.
Right.
That's our fucking punishment. You don't need to be punitive too.
Right. Yeah.
You don't need to be extra. you know?
I like the guys, like the guys that, the correctional officers that are basically, it's just a job.
Right.
They show up, they do their job, they leave. It's the guys that get there and they want to talk down to you. They want to belittle you and make your life much, much harder. They want to write up incident reports for things that didn't happen.
Right.
Or, I've seen guys, they'll go in and there's all those stupid things.
They'll lie on you.
I'm not even talking about guys that'll plant stuff. Like you don't have to plant someone to give them a hard time, plant stuff on.
No.
You could just go in and flip their bed. Like people don't realize, like I've got a cell.
Right.
If the guard walks in and he flips my bed over or just pulls, he can just mess it up and write a report. Boom.
Right.
Guy didn't have, this inmate didn't have his bed, in good shape. Or maybe I've seen guys get written up because the guy 2 cells down borrowed a newspaper and he went to return it and he put it on the guy's bed. Boom. Inmate has something on his bed. Like, I didn't put it on my bed.
Right.
Somebody else did. And you write me up. And now I lose 30 days commissary, or I get, something happens to me, or maybe you lose your 2-man room and now you're in a 3-man room.
Right.
And you're like, it took me 2 years to get into a 2-man room because I lent a paper to Jimmy, and Jimmy wasn't smart enough to realize you shouldn't have thrown it on my bed. You should have handed it back to me.
Right.
So, and I didn't do that. Right. I was at work.
Right.
When I left, my bed was fine. When I came back, you've written me a report. You've written me an incident report because Jimmy, when I was at work, threw it on my paper. Like, it's so unfair. And people think, oh, well, what's the big deal? The big deal is it took me 2 years to get a 2-man cell. I was comfortable. Yeah. I did nothing wrong.
Right.
And now I'm going to a 3-man cell with 2 other guys.
That would be uncomfortable.
That's extremely uncomfortable. And, it's just this, and people don't, they don't realize how, you hear about these guys who are like, this guy got stabbed because he lost the guy's book. Like the guy, I lent him my Game of Thrones book and he lent it to somebody else and that guy got shipped or he gave it to somebody and now they can't find it. And next thing you know, they get stabbed. Somebody gets stabbed over it, and you're like, God, you stabbed him over a book. You don't seem to understand what happened. That's not the book.
Happened.
Like there's a whole other your priorities are so shifted. The things that mean nothing out here that you wouldn't think twice about are so overwhelmingly important. You make decisions and you do things that you would never do on the street. Until you've been there for 4 or 5 years, it still seems silly.
Yeah.
But 4 or 5 years later, it's not silly.
Yeah.
You can't talk to me like that. You can't say that. You can't do this. You need to return that. That's why, luckily I was sharp enough not to get into those trouble. I don't lend things. I don't do this. I don't borrow this. I don't do this. I just don't have it. I don't lend it. I don't give it. I don't this. I don't borrow anything. I'll do without. No, I'll go without coffee for a week. I don't need to borrow coffee. I'm good.
Yeah.
And across the board, there's all these little things that just kept me out of trouble because I saw things go so wrong for other people.
Little tiny nuances that are a big deal.
Yeah.
They're a big deal, or can be. And a lot of it is just respect things.
Yeah.
Like, just boils down to respect on a basic level. A lot of it's just respect. And then so many other things too. Like, I'm not gonna borrow from you. I'm not gonna pay you interest. Like, you. Like, I'll go without. And I'm not gonna. I'm just not gonna do that. And I
was just saying, I've even bought stuff for people, and they're like, "No, I'll get you back." No.
Right.
This is yours. Like,
you don't yours.
You want to give me some of that back? Fine. That's fine. It's up to you. But
Right. This is yours. I'm buying it for you.
Right.
It's yours. Yeah. It's
Yeah. I bought a guy toothpaste one time because he's using the regular toothpaste all the time. I know he had money in it. I bought it. Boom.
The Bob Barker.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh, it's horrific.
It's better for polishing metal than it is for doing your teeth.
Right. But it's a horrible situation. Just what's your priority? I wish I could think of a way to say it. Your priorities are so skewed and so fucked up after being in prison just a little period of time.
Right.
And I've seen guys that they get themselves into trouble right away.
Right away.
They don't
crash
understand.
test dummy right away.
Yeah, and you're just like, bro, what'd you do? Like, you got here, you within a week, you're running up debts, you're borrowing money, you're doing everything wrong. You try and tell them that guy's good, bro. No, he's not good. You don't know that guy. Nah, we're from the same neighborhood. That doesn't mean anything.
You're doing way too much.
Right.
Calm down. Like, stop what you're doing. A couple little white kids get themselves in trouble that way. Like, just, oh man, he's so nice. He lent me this. And I'm like, did you not watch the honey bun video, bro? Right. Like, come on. Like, this is like prison 101. You weren't paying attention to the honey bun video, were you?
Guys used to say, what's the difference between the low and the medium? I say you have to have heard me say that. I'd say in the medium, if a dude leaves a Snickers bar on your pillow, don't touch it. In the low, you can eat it. You'll be fine. Right. Yeah, nobody's gonna do anything. They're walking around tough guys. They're acting like badasses and stuff.
But for the most part,
you'd have to really give them a reason.
Yeah, you'd have to really give them a reason to go after you. For the most part, like, we don't have medium and low in state, but we have like higher institutions.
Yeah, don't they have levels, right? It's a level 5, it's a level 7.
Level 7, yeah, whatever. But you've also just got some places that are wilder than others, and you got to know how to move and know how to do your time. And
this is the same thing. Like, there's guys that would be in the the low in Yazoo is worse than the medium at Coleman. You know what I mean? Like, it's
right. Of course, of course.
In the low here, like, if you're a sex offender, like, don't even look in the window of the TV room as you walk by.
Right.
That, like, they keep their heads down. They don't. In the low, these guys these guys would actually come in. Some would just stand outside the window and they'd look. There were some times when they'd actually go in and watch a program. Like, they'd have to really petition to be able to watch a program. But it happens.
These are the sex offenders.
Yeah, these are the sex offenders. But this is a low. 50% of them are sex offenders. What are you going to do? There's too many of them, right? But you think about in other institutions, like, these guys are walking around, they're staring at the ground, they eat last, they did, like,
right.
And it could be even it could be even a lower custody. It just depends on who's running it. Like, just because it's what happens at a low in California is vastly different than what's going to happen at a low in Florida.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah, and like for state side for sex offenders, and like me personally, it's like pretty much smash on site or check in. I didn't even get into that part of like my own story, but like, so I'm a survivor of that. There's a couple people in my neighborhood that I grew up in. There was like actually not one but two, like pretty prolific. I know now,
right?
Sex offenders that molested numerous boys in my neighborhood, like numerous ones of us, and we all didn't know that he got a bunch of us until later, and it fucked up like a whole generation of kids, like actually, because he got so many of us, and so like for me from that perspective, like I personally put a lot of people's shit on the glass, like. You know, you get those like dorky fucking, usually little fucking dorky little white boy or something.
They all they have that look.
They got a look, man. They do, a little fucking weasel. It's usually just a little weaselly little dude, and you're just like, paperwork. And if they don't have paperwork, you know, you're like,
my lawyer told me not to talk about my case. You're gonna get smashed.
Yeah, put your fucking shit on the glass. How about that? Like, or like I worked at maintenance when I was at Franklin, and I don't want to say how, but we had a way to like. You know, not even with a cell phone. It wasn't we had a cell phone. We had a way to look up people's DOC record. And like, I remember there was this dude that was like, he would run ink and stuff. He was a goddamn good tattoo artist. But I overheard him a few times in line, like on the way to chow, be like, "Oh yeah, look at her, or look at him, or whatever." And I'm like, and he's like talking to some other dude. Like, I'd like fucking just take that or whatever. And I'm like, there's something's up with this fucking guy. So I decided to look his ass up. He's in for an L&L on a victim under 12. And like, and everybody was like, kind of like, oh, he's a fucking outlaw biker,
Doesn't mean anything.
And maybe he was. He had the tattoo and shit, but I don't give a fuck. I personally was like, put your shit on the glass. And I had printed it out, the printout. And smuggled it back in. I was like, you get your shit out of the glass. And he's like, I ain't no fucking sex offender, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, listen, dude, put your shit on the fucking glass. And he like started to refuse at first. I said, listen, I'm going to really throw you under the bus now. And I was like, I'm just going to do something and you're going to see why you need to put your shit on the glass. And I just pasted it up on the officer station. And everybody immediately got to see that he not only was there for an L&L and a victim under 12, but he was a multiple time sex offender.
Right.
He is a fucking prolific sex offender. And like, I'm one of those people, like, I believe that people can change if they put enough work in. However, sex offenders can't be rehabilitated. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. Those motherfuckers cannot be rehabilitated. All they want to do is figure out a way to get away with it. They're not like drug addicts and gambling addicts and fraud addicts,
right.
You know, who can change. Like, that's like a switch or something is fucked up in their head that they are attracted to minors. It can't be fixed. They might as well just Jimmy Rice act all of them, put them in a fucking island somewhere, send them all to Epstein's Island or some shit. Like, I don't know, like, just do something with them. You know, it just they can't be rehabilitated. I don't care what anybody says, you just can't. But anyway, I digress. But it's just really sickening to me. The way those people operate, but like, and I've heard that about the feds though, that the lows sometimes are just
because there's so many that are arrested.
Exactly.
And what's happening? They'll go in, they'll get these guys that are, you know, they'll arrest 45 guys on one case. They'll arrest because they're doing internet crimes. So there's so many of these guys feel comfortable on the Instagram. They're looking up stuff. They're just looking up photos. And so if you even have looked it up and have it on your computer, you're getting 3 years mandatory. That's it, 3 years. So they flooded all the lows. They can't, you know, it's not. They don't consider it like a violent crime, so they're not going to the mediums. But they can't go to a low because of public safety. So you can't. It has to be a fence. So it's a low. You're only going to the lows. So the lows are packed full of them.
Wow.
And so now they just fill them up, and you know, what do you do? And then just recently, about a year or so ago, the halfway houses started taking them again in Florida, because Florida used to not allow them in halfway houses.
They're not allowed to go to work release,
right?
For like states.
but they've locked up. So it's like, okay, great. You're going out, you're getting them, you're doing something. That's great, but that's only half the problem. Now where do they go?
Well, they don't give the motherfuckers no time either. That's what really irks me too. Like, I don't know about the feds.
I was going to say, in the feds, here's the problem. So if you actually can be a hands-on offender in the state, and you can get probation.
Right.
But if you looked at a picture in the Fed, you're getting 3 years. Now, if you have multiple pictures, you could end up with 3, 6, 9. You could end up with 50. There are guys that have 15 years because they had a video or they went to whatever. And it's like, okay, but he didn't get a hold of anybody. This guy got a hold of someone, and he got 12 months in the state and 5 years paper. It's like, are you serious? This guy yanked somebody into a van.
Right.
This guy looked at some pictures. I'm not saying either one of them is acceptable, but 15 years versus 12 months? What are you doing?
It doesn't make any sense whatsoever as far as I'm concerned. But I've just noticed, you get somebody that pawns some shit, you give them fucking 5 years, 4 years, whatever it may be. You got a guy that, got an L&L on somebody under 12, and they get in 24 months.
Right.
They may have a lifetime of probation after, but it's still like.
Well, I think the problem is that for it's a tough situation, and the problem is for some people it'll never be enough time. You're never going to get a consensus on what constitutes enough time. If you're a little old lady and you lost $500,000 of your life savings to a white collar criminal, some people are saying he's a white collar criminal, but if it's her, she's saying give him life.
Right.
So well, if I give him life, what do I give the murderer? What do I give the? So it's a balancing act.
It's also just because I don't believe they can be rehabilitated. That always sways my thing.
Well, I think, and here's the other problem with my opinion on that is like, now we have to house them. Like now, like kind of like what the judge said. Like how much resources can you throw?
Right.
And you can't march them off to the to the gun range. So it's like, not that there's not a whole, not that I don't think that vote would pass, but nobody wants to even put it up for a vote. So it's like you're like, there's just no good solution.
No, like that's why there always needs to be like a place that they go. It's like
you want an island, they can grow their own food. They can
be completely
create their own culture,
off grid.
It's fine.
Right. So
parents can threaten to send their children there when they're bad. There would be a whole genre kind of set up just around that whole thing. People would write books. It would be. It would turn into the boogeyman.
Oh yeah. It'd be like my parents tell me they're going to give me to the gypsies.
Right.
When I was a kid. We're going to give you to the gypsies. What the fuck even are the gypsies?
I don't even know what the gypsies are, but the fact that you guys are threatening me with it?
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes. They would tell us that all the time. Like, we're going to give you to the gypsies. I'm like, what the fuck even are the gypsies? The Hungarians, the fucking weird English people, like the Brad Pitt and Snatch. Like,
I love that movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie. But, yeah, I mean.
Well.
Yeah.
What are we good? You feel good?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so, and I can tell Kevin doesn't feel good.
I can tell Kevin is having some problems.
He is. I can tell he was.
I feel bad because I know he doesn't have any food in his stomach. So.
Yeah.
So the story behind that is these guys had a bad meal last night, and they spent a good portion of last night being sick at the hotel, and this morning being sick. And when I got the phone call this morning, it was like, I think we're good. We're on our way. There's nothing left in our stomachs. We're good. But Kevin, who's watching, is gone to the bathroom. Well, has been good, but has gone to the bathroom several times and obviously not doing well. So
I thought of a title for a book when I was in prison. I was like, I'm gonna write a memoir and just call it Weird Shit and Amazing Tales, my life and times as a degenerate drug addict in South Florida. And
that would be good. That would be a great title.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good title. And now I'm putting it on the internet so some other asshole will write it. But I always thought it would be a good title though, and just put a bunch of my dad's stories and shit in there because there's numerous. So, but yeah.
Your dad's story sound like my cousin's story of a cousin who is addicted to meth, and was in prison. Has been in and out of prison for meth, and manufacturing meth. And
oh, geez.
And so he had one story after another, and his stories were great, bro. They were hilarious. And I remember one time he said, and just the way he talks, man, I had a credit card one time. I couldn't break it. It was a corporate card, and I could just buy and buy and buy. And I used this thing for weeks. And I couldn't break it. He goes, and my girlfriend, the girl I was seeing, she said, baby, take me to the store and let me give me some diapers. So I go and we fill up the cart with diapers, and I swipe the card, and it's good. And we're walking out with the cart filled with diapers, and the manager comes out,
right.
And he runs up to him and he goes. And he says, hey, well, you got to come back in the store. We got to talk about this. And he's like, whoa, wait a minute. So the guy says, man, come on, man, let me just take the diapers. Let me go. Let us go. Right. And he goes, nah, you should have. He goes, oh, you should have thought about that. And he looked at him. He said, okay. And he pulls, and he's got a gun. My cousin's got a gun. Right. Pulls out the gun and puts his hand on the gun. He said, you know what? He said, help her put those diapers in the fucking back of that truck. And the guy's like, oh, wait a minute. I got a wife. And he goes, oh, you should have thought about that. And he says, he loads them up and tells them to kick rocks. And they get in the car and they leave.
Fucking asshole.
But, it's just one story after another. It's like every one of them's hilarious.
Yeah, there's those people out there just
on the fringes.
That are full of them. My dad's like a Florida man without being a Florida man. He's from Connecticut, but he's.
I don't think you have to be born here to be a Florida man.
I don't even
feel like you have to just reside
from
here.
A native's perspective. Yeah. I don't think you have to be born here to be a Florida man. And like Florida's full of fucked up people from Ohio. That's like, oh, you're fucked up and from Ohio, come to Florida. Tim Dorsey used to say that in all of his books. That like all the fucked up people from Ohio, like
Tim Dorsey's great.
Florida. They're popular books in the joint and shit. So
hey, I appreciate you guys watching the interview. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell so you get notified of videos like this. Also, do me a favor and check out our new Clips channel. The link is it's on the front page. It's the Clips channel logo. I appreciate you guys watching. Thank you very much. See ya.